Jimmy Carter Boulevard right now. We're still plowing down Jimmy Carter Boulevard. We just got off I-85. The Atlanta News First chopper providing you with this live footage over this Gwinnett County transit bus. We don't know who's driving. We don't know what's happening on board this bus, but this is a live image of this bus flying down Jimmy Carter Boulevard, ignoring every traffic law, every stop sign, every stop light, and it's already ran into several police officers. It's ran into several cars on the highway and on the roadway as well. Officers are doing everything they can to bring it to a stop. They're trying spike strips. We've seen spike strips. We've seen roadblocks. The bus is not stopping. It simply is not stopping. I want to bring in my co-anchor here, Tracy Hutchins. She just joined me here at the top of the hour here, what will soon be the top of the hour. We're going to be right back to this bus chase. Stay with us right here on Atlanta News First. We've got more coverage on the other side.
You're watching Atlanta's only locally owned station. Live at 5 starts now on Atlanta News First with breaking news.
We are following breaking news here in Metro Atlanta. This is all happening in Gwinnett County at Jimmy Carter Boulevard right now. Take a look. Live images from our First Alert chopper. This bus. We don't know who's behind the wheel. We don't know what's going on that bus. But for the last 20 minutes or so, we've been watching that bus weave in and out of traffic, run through intersections, run through on that bus right now. We don't know if the current driver of the bus is behind the wheel. We don't know if someone else is behind the wheel. But right there, Georgia State Patrol officers, state police really trying to get this bus stopped for everyone's safety.
And here's somebody up on the left side here. A GSP officer just sped right by the bus to pull into the front. Most of them are trailing, but every now and again they send an officer to the front of the bus. That could be, honestly, to just stop the intersections ahead of the bus and warn everyday people to say, look, this is a dangerous situation here, flying down what I believe is State Route 8. It looks like that's the connector over in Gwinnett County. We were on I-85. We switched to Jimmy Boulevard. We're coming up on the Stone Mountain Freeway, I've been told, with this bus. It's pulling into the center lane here, Tracy, avoiding traffic. It looks like, yeah, they've got the traffic up there stopped, but this bus isn't stopping.
No, and it looks like they've done an amazing job of really calling ahead and trying to get as many people out of the way. You see that officer there in the intersection really stopping traffic, trying to make way for this bus as best as they can, trying to get all those drivers out of the way. He is going the wrong way in that turn line.
That's another car connecting.
And you're talking about a heavy piece of equipment you talked about before, Alan, and you can see the damage on the front end of that bus, even on the backside there, all the things it's running into, the curbs, the vehicles, everything else. Again, we don't know the situation on this bus. Some time ago, there was some kind of altercation. The driver, whoever was in charge of how that bus is able to move, the bus drove off, and here's where we ended up, right off Jimmy Carter Boulevard, up I-85, heading to Stone Mountain Freeway.
Yes, Stone Mountain Freeway.
So that's what we're looking at right now. Live images from our First Alert chopper.
And we've seen spike strips, deployed so far. We've seen officers try and do roadblocks. We've seen them try and do a pit maneuver, but this bus just too big for these methods to work. I'm not sure if it connected earlier or not, that spike strip I was talking about, but the bus is still moving, and I don't see any damage coming from those front tires. And it's still plowing. This is, again, Stone Mountain. We're in the Stone Mountain area right now, working to figure out exactly what is happening as this bus, again, barrels down the freeway here, or at least the roadway here, followed by a number of officers. GSP, it looks like Gwinnett County PD as well, chasing this bus, and we still don't know what in the world is going on board. There's no clue right now about why or whatever's happening or what started this fight or why police first responded to Ivan Allen to try and make this happen. It looks like, and I missed that roadway. We just got to look at that roadway there.
I think they're headed eastbound on Hugh Howell Road from what our First Alert breaking news desk is telling us at this point. And, you know, you mentioned those stop strips before, Alan, just kind of talking about that. Clear, you know, they're designed to stop things, but are they designed to stop a bus?
A bus.
We don't know how many people are on that bus. We are hoping for everyone's safety that there aren't many people there who are just having to endure this dangerous ride here. But again, as you mentioned, those stop strips really did not do that much damage.
They really didn't. I want to bring in Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe, who has, of course, covered this type of stuff for decades and decades. Brendan, you're watching this video live. You're watching this police chase behind this bus. What's going through your mind?
Well, the biggest thing we have to report right now is what we're getting from scanner traffic. Now realize this isn't confirmed yet by police, except this is what they're saying to each other over the radio, is that the driver is being held hostage.
Oh, wow.
The driver is being held at gunpoint with the hostage taker threatening to shoot the driver, which is why we may be seeing this driver take such aggressive action, ramming into police cars, ramming into civilian cars. The driver clearly would not want to do that, but literally there's a hostage taker with a gun on the bus.
It looks, we're going to stop you for a minute. It looks as though things have stopped just behind that tree line here.
Here we go.
Our first alert chopper, we're trying to get a better perspective. We can see it looks unclear if someone stepped on the bus or stepped off. We can see the driver in the vest. You
Someone's
see
up
some
there with
movement
the
there.
driver.
Okay, there he is. That suspect,
Look at that.
suspect, yes. It looks like a law enforcement was able to get on the bus and
Is that
someone
law
on the ground.
enforcement?
Oh, no, I take it back. Maybe those passengers on the bus,
They're
those
getting off
passengers
the
on the
bus.
bus, getting off the bus, getting out to some safety.
Yes, yes, with their hands behind their head. That's what's happening right now. The passengers getting off the bus there. We saw the driver in the vest who was behind the steering wheel, and there was another person up there in the front with that driver, and then immediately after, people started getting off of that bus. We are monitoring this situation. We have the live feed up right now, but we had to pull off of that because we're not exactly sure what is happening there with that situation. But you could see everyday people stepping off of that bus, getting into the grass with their hands up behind their head. And like Brendan Keefe just spoke about, we now know that this is a hostage situation.
Oh, how frightening. I mean, it's one of those scenarios you see in the movie,
Yes,
Speed. I think
Speed,
immediately we think about that as we saw that bus just weaving in and out of traffic. Want to go back to some information we got from our first alert desk here that officers responded to Ivan Allen Jr. Boulevard. This is earlier today before 4 p.m. Unfortunately, we can't see too much from our first alert chopper behind the trees here. But this all started as some kind of dispute on a Gwinnett County transit bus. That bus fled from the location, and that's when that kind of slow speed, sometimes high speed pursuit began, where those officers, Georgia State Patrol officers, were behind that bus trying to get it to stop. Now we see SWAT units right in front of it, blocking that bus there.
Guns pointed.
Yeah, we may need to kind of pull back from this too.
We're keeping our eyes on it.
Just to kind of watch out. But it does appear as though all the passengers on that bus were able to get off. They had to come down, get off, get their knees on the ground, hands behind their heads, so that law enforcement can determine who is the actual suspect that they need to detain at this point.
Yes, and we're not sure if everybody is off that bus. It looked like a good bit of them were off that bus, or at least got off the bus before we took away from the shot here as the Atlanta News First chopper now pans around. We've got some trees there in the tree line, but this is, again, a live image there right now. We're keeping our eyes on this. We believe this is Silver Hill Road near Stone Mountain. That is the live look from the chopper. The chopper now flying back the other direction here. A massive SWAT presence in front of and behind this bus. This is a look here, and it looks like officers right there, guns drawn as they approach the front end of this bus. They're getting on the bus. SWAT is boarding the bus, riot shields deployed, guns drawn, and we're not exactly sure what comes next here, Tracy.
Right, a sharpshooter on top of that SWAT vehicle there. They are trying to make sure this is covered from every angle. As far as we know right now, that bus driver may possibly still be being held hostage. And of course, what's paramount is that driver's safety at this point. And that's what those officers are trying to make sure they can get that driver off that bus safely without anyone being hurt here, without any further harm being done. It's a little bit hard to tell what officers are doing now, but the good news here is at least a lot of the people on the roadways are safe, because that was very tenuous, touch and go, watching this bus weave in and out of traffic. And as we start to get into rush hour here on this Tuesday, once again, crazy busy day, right, in Metro Atlanta. But to watch this all unfold, again, this all happening right now, where we are now from our first alert chopper's perspective is Silver Hill Road near the Stone Mountain Freeway there. You can see a lot of vehicles pulled off to the side, heavy police presence, and it looks as though they do have someone in custody there.
Look at that.
Hands behind his back there, and they are scurrying him into a police unit here.
We're hoping that this is the only suspect that they needed to put in handcuffs. They've got him. They were on that bus. They were on board that bus, and we went behind the tree line here. And then seconds later, they are walking what appears to be a suspect, a person in custody, handcuffs tied behind his back, and they're getting him to a police car as we speak. The next question is that the end of this situation? Is this the only suspect involved? Are there any injuries? Was anybody hurt on board that bus? Even if it wasn't from situations on the bus, if you've been with us here for a while, you've seen that bus slam into a number of cars on the interstate, off the interstate, through Gwinnett County, near Stone Mountain to where we are right now, which is Silver Hill Road. The SWAT team stormed that bus just mere seconds ago, and now it looks like we've got a potential suspect in custody. We want to know who all was on that bus, why, and most importantly, if anybody is injured, Tracy.
Yeah, and just what led to this confrontation, this altercation to lead this person to want to take that bus driver hostage. And it looked as though there were easily 5, 6, 7, possibly more people who were on that bus. You know what? They're just trying to get to work. They're just trying to get home. They're just trying to go about their day. Yeah. And they are subjected to this, really fearing for their lives at the time, worried about the bus driver. How is he doing? And, you know, no telling what was going on that bus at that time. Let's bring in our chief investigator, Brendan Keefe, to talk a little bit more about this. Brendan, you know, we're hoping this is the end of the story as far as this phase goes for this potential taking this bus driver hostage and really going on this chase through across Gwinnett County.
Yeah, let me give you a little context. I was a Mike 8, if that helps.
There we go.
I was a chopper reporter for 5 years in Houston, covered dozens of police chases, really hundreds of different chases over that time period, every single day flying in the helicopter. So that's the perspective I'm offering. I'll tell you right now, I've never seen such restraint from a SWAT team. This was incredibly professional, because you got to keep in mind, this is a deadly weapon that was being piloted, even if it was essentially at force, you know, with the hostage taker. So the police would have every justification to use lethal force to save lives, to prevent the loss of life. You notice and we'll re-rack the video eventually here at this point, but you had a SWAT team member, as you pointed out, Tracy, on top of that vehicle. There's two kinds of things, cover and concealment. They're different. They can be both at the same time, but one is cover, that just prevents the shooter from seeing you, and that's concealment. And then cover is actually hard cover that prevents you from bullets going through something and hitting you. That officer on top would also be called overwatch. It's usually a sniper position, but it was so close to the bus, and that was clearly a rifle, more than likely an M4 rifle. With a scope, so they had a clear view into the bus, but also cover and concealment. And then what you had is the officers storming the bus. The fact that we saw what appears to be a suspect coming off the bus, uninjured, unshot, is extraordinary, because, again, there would have been every justification to use lethal force, because already we saw a deadly weapon used to run into vehicles, and there were people's lives at stake. So an extraordinary end to this. And they tried everything, as you pointed out. Stop sticks. They even tried it on the highway. The back right wheels, the tires actually came off.
Oh, really? Okay.
As they just got off on Jimmy Carter Boulevard. And so those back wheels came off. In fact, the bus was having trouble navigating some of the turns. They tried everything. You can't do a pit maneuver.
No, not on the bus.
The precision intervention technique, because there isn't enough momentum with the bus. They tried stopping in front of the bus. The Georgia State Patrol vehicle was nearly run over and knocked out of the way. In effect, the bus did a pit maneuver on the Georgia State Patrol. So what tools do you have at your disposal if the stop sticks aren't working and you can't do a pit maneuver? What you had, we don't know exactly why the bus stopped at this point. But what we do know is the SWAT team was instrumental, and the SWAT team was right there.
Exactly.
They didn't have to wait for them to come in, and they were able to immediately both provide safety for the officers who were going to storm the bus, and they made a decision not to turn this into a standoff, but to turn it into a breach. A breach is when you actually enter the structure, or in this case, the bus that was holding the hostage taker, and they took immediate and decisive action. And at this point, it does not appear there was any loss of life, which is extraordinary.
And Brendan, I want to go back to something you were saying, which I noticed too, just kind of watching this all unfold, the communication ahead of where, you know, it's hard to tell where this bus is going to go, where this suspected gunman is going to ask this driver to go. Great communication in terms of getting a number of people off the road, because this bus is now driving down the wrong side of the road, and to have that SWAT team close by enough to where this bus is able to stop, where they can do what they need to do to get everyone safe. We didn't see any major car accidents here. You know, thank goodness we haven't seen anyone on the ground. But to their credit, you know, being able to end this as peacefully as possible with minimal injuries.
Tracy, there was extraordinary coordination. I was listening to the police radio traffic, and you had Atlanta police actually saying, okay, I want you guys to stand off here. I want you other ones to go up ahead and to protect the intersections. Alan, you noticed that. They were actually going ahead to make sure that we didn't have a T-bone crash at a red light where the other drivers have a green light and a bus is T-boning. That would have been a fatal collision, and they were able to prevent that by putting the officers ahead. Georgia State Patrol was doing almost all of the contact. So you had vehicles to the left and the right, and then you had the vehicles behind. This was exceptionally well coordinated, and yes, they were definitely following sort of a playbook, if you will. With that said, there are departments, Atlanta Police included, which have very strict rules about when you can and cannot pursue. This is one of those cases that is not going to fall into the we don't pursue, because what it comes down to, is there a potential for loss of life? We're not talking about someone fleeing a speeding ticket stop. We're talking about someone holding a hostage on a deadly weapon bus that is being piloted through traffic. This is a classic example of when you do the pursuit. Almost every police department in the nation would have continued to pursue this vehicle.
Now, Brendan, do you have any understanding of the moment when they got that bus to stop? And those officers, it looked like, did you see the moment that it looked like passengers were getting off of the bus with their hands up and the officers were switching places with them and going on board? In that moment when they're first breaching that bus and they don't know what they're about to walk up those steps into, what are these officers trying to make sure happens?
So here's the problem. It's the fog of war. Who's the suspect, right? So, I mean, is there more than one? There's actually a training technique used in police academy, always looking for the plus one. If you've got one bad guy, you need to turn and look for where's the next one. So if you've got two, you're looking for the third. If you've got three, you're looking for the fourth. So what you want to do is make sure every single person coming off that bus, this is why unfortunately we see it in mass shootings all the time, students coming out of school with their hands in the air, because you don't know who the shooter is.
You don't know which one.
You don't know if there's an accomplice. So everyone is treated as a suspect until they're rendered safe.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out right now, we're still looking at some activity right outside of this bus right here.
And they could be, Ellen, not to interrupt you, but they could possibly be rendering aid to the bus driver.
There you go, yeah.
I have not seen him yet, but we see a number of...
We should widen out there. They're definitely providing medical aid at this point, where they, and this helicopter, we may not necessarily have control of the shot at this point, but they're definitely rendering aid to someone on the ground. Those are EMTs. And also, it's important to point out, some of those officers there are Atlanta Police. Yeah,
we're going to get off of that for just a minute, Brendan. Yeah, just so we make sure that everything is okay. We're going to check on the condition of the bus driver momentarily. But those officers doing an amazing job, really playbook response, if you will, to how this all ended. And it's not quite over yet. Certainly, this needs to play out in courts, and we will hear more from the suspected gunman and really how this all transpired. Let's get back to that First Alert chopper video. This is video of what just happened just after 5 o'clock when that suspect was taken off the bus. You could see, 3 officers right there really dragging him almost to the vehicle to get him off the bus. A tenuous situation, rightfully so. The number of people who were put in jeopardy by this person allegedly holding the driver at gunpoint is just mind-boggling to think of how many people could have been hurt in this.
And we saw a lot of people getting off that bus right when they first stopped it, but we cut away from that shot and we fell behind the tree line. So we don't know how many people were actually evacuated off of this bus. Again, this is video from moments ago, and right here, the actual bus pursuit, the chase of this bus. There's the spike strip right there that Brendan Keefe was talking about. He mentioned how it looked like it might have gotten some of those wheels, but this bus just kept on going, and it's flying down what I believe this is Jimmy Carter Boulevard from earlier. Jimmy Carter Boulevard here, cutting in and out of traffic. It was going the wrong way at some moments, flying through intersections. Tracy, this was a mess, and several cars were hit.
Barely got out of the way. Again, this is video from earlier today. That pursuit is over, thank goodness. But producers pointing out on the front of that bus, you know how they have the numbers and everything on the bus. This one said 911 emergency 911.
Oh, really?
So that is something I didn't know. That you could see on a bus, right?
That could have been a punch by the bus driver.
Right, the bus driver letting everybody know this is his situation, get out of the way.
And look at this.
This video from earlier today.
Yeah, this is people actually getting off of that bus that we were talking about. It looks like we saw 3 or 4 moving off of that bus here with their hands up behind their head. This is moments before officers ran right onto that bus and then, as we saw, got a suspect in custody. Look at all these people getting right off that bus and walking away from it. Now, we don't know what's going on there on the ground when this happened. We don't know what that interaction was or how police managed to either convince the suspect to let the passengers off or had him detained in some way. We're working on building that timeline right now, and I'm sure police are as well. And we're going to be getting an update from them real soon. I want to take you guys back out to I-85 here. This is where Atlanta News First found out about this situation. As soon as we got our chopper there, we put it on the video. Brendan Keefe was talking about an attempted blockade from a GSP officer. The bus never even slowed down. That's too much power, too much motor, too much weight. The GSP officer getting forced down the highway. I'm sure that officer is likely in full
dangerous for
brake.
him.
Yes,
oh my
extremely dangerous. Brendan said this was basically a reverse pit maneuver. The bus then continued down the highway. It hit several cars, I believe. Yeah, there's one of them right there. This gray four-door sedan moved right out of the way. It rolls into yet another vehicle, and the bus just keeps on going, flies right off that was an officer vehicle right there, Tracy. No regard for human life. No regard for human life as this bus then picks up speed, gets off I-85, and then starts barreling down Jimmy Carter Boulevard. I believe you've got video of the spikes. Here are the spikes once again, an attempt to stop this bus. There it is. The back tires. It looks like it did connect. The bus just didn't slow down. Are these spike strips made to stop a bus? That's the question we asked earlier.
Yeah, you had a lot of speed and a lot of momentum behind that. We want to take you back right now to live images from our first alert chopper right now, if we can. From last we checked, they were rendering aid, first responders rendering aid to what we believe was the driver of that bus who was being held hostage, from what we understand, by a suspect, held at gunpoint. And basically, you know, that driver, I'm not sure if he was being given direction on where to go, or just trying to drive to get somewhere where he could find some safety and some cover. And a number of people we saw get off that bus. There were passengers on that bus whose lives were at risk at the time there. Again, these live images, this all kind of unfolding at Silver Hill Road near Stone Mountain. This is an intersection camera right now. I can't exactly, this is in Tucker, Hugh Howell Road at Stratmore Drive. And again, we talked about, you know, really the coordination between law enforcement in getting those intersections blocked off. In that video we saw earlier where they threw down the stop sticks, traffic on the other side of the road was stopped. That's a lot of coordination, almost in rush hour here, trying to get everybody to stop to make sure they all stayed safe. Because who knew where that bus was going to go? Who knew where that driver was being directed to go? The wrong way at times. Yeah, very many times.
Impossible to predict exactly what the next movements were going to be here. This intersection right here again, filled with officers out there. This is right off of where that bus was. I don't believe you can see the bus from this vantage point, but I do think it's right off camera. This is a live GDOT camera of that intersection where officers, of course, have multiple roadways shut down. But I want to bring you back about 20 to 30 minutes ago, back to that chase, that initial chase down I-85, then Jimmy Carter. Here we go right here, the bus on I-85. You can see just how many officers had already responded to this chase. The bus moving right through traffic. This is rush hour. And then, Tracy, an attempt to stop the bus, all for naught. The bus just kept on chugging.
That officer really putting his life on the line there to try and stop that bus, because imagine if he pushed him into, you know, some more traffic or pushed him into a sidewall there, what could have happened? And we want to give you a recap of how this all started. This was just before 4 o'clock this afternoon. Actually started in downtown Atlanta at Ivan Allen Boulevard. And again, this is a Gwinnett County transit bus. And there was some altercation that happened on that bus, and the bus then took off. That's what we learned. And then it ended up there on Silver Hill Road near Stone Mountain. So this pursuit really across the metro, down the freeways, up the freeways, you know, up Jimmy Carter Boulevard. And once again, this video of those stop sticks, those spikes being thrown into the roadway, that officer having great aim there, he just did not stop that bus.
He just didn't. And I want to give you guys some perspective as well. You're watching this entire interaction here between this bus and these vehicles from hundreds of feet up in the air. What looks like it might be a small fender bender or a good, decent bump is actually much more dramatic for the poor souls that are inside some of these cars, including the officers and the everyday people that are just trying to get to or from work or home. You're getting hit by a bus. It doesn't matter how fast the bus is moving. Any kind of jolting or jumbling is going to be a dramatic, and there's another instance right there of what I'm talking about. This is running into everyday people on the roadway, and it is an intense accident. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people, not only who were on board that bus, who are in some kind of pain, but some of the people who were in those vehicles that were hit by the bus. If you look to the left side here, you can see we're about to see some of those people come right off of this bus, and there's one hands up behind his head. Look at this right here. Coming out, walking away. This one's getting on the ground, hands behind his head. He realizes he needs to go. They're all getting off, and if you look through the driver's windshield, the driver looks like he or she is in that yellow neon vest. That's who we can assume is the driver here. And then several times during that chase, we saw at times, it was somebody in a white T-shirt up there up front with the driver. It just so happens we now know the suspect happened to be wearing a white T-shirt as well. There's a good chance, Tracy, as we learn more about this incident, we'll figure out that that person we saw standing by the driver as it was barreling down 85 was indeed the suspect who may have been armed.
And we do want to give you another look right now. This is video from just moments ago when officers took that suspected gunman into custody, really hurrying him off into a police vehicle there. Glad they got him off that bus. Glad they got that those passengers and that bus driver to safety there. Again, from what we have learned, that suspect was holding the driver of that bus at gunpoint, and that is what led to that slow speed, sometimes high speed chase across Metro Atlanta at some points in time.
I want to bring back in Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe, who again has a whole lot of experience with situations like this from front to back. Brendan, what exactly do you think would be happening on the ground right now as Atlanta News First tries to learn more details about what we're looking at?
Well, it's important to point out what we know and what we don't know.
And if we can bring Brendan's mic up.
So it's mic 8, if that helps.
There we go. All right, Brendan.
Now. So what's important to point out is what we know and what we don't know. So we do know they were working on someone right outside the bus. We don't know exactly who that person is or was. Is it the driver? Is it another suspect, a co-conspirator, if you will? We just don't know right now. What I will tell you is we're looking at a serious injury because they were doing CPR. Not when we were showing you the video, but right after we cut away from it, they were doing CPR on the ground. And so it's important to point out, we don't know what happened there. We don't know if the person was shot or by whom. It's important to point out. But remember, you guys noticed that where it said emergency 911, that's where normally the route is. That's a panic button. Almost every transit system has this. It's sort of like a silent alarm. The person on the bus doesn't know it's been triggered, but everybody else does. And so we don't know if that's what initiated it or whether there was a radio call or what, but that alerts everybody, hey, this is a bus that's in essentially distress. New York City taxis have a similar thing. It's a yellow light that the drivers can hit. For a short time, I was an auxiliary police officer in the NYPD about 20 years ago, and I can tell you that was one of the trainings we had was to look for that yellow light. It means it's a driver in distress. So they immediately would know that. One other thing I wanted to point out, the stop sticks that we've been showing over and over again, that is when they were on Jimmy Carter Boulevard on the front wheels. The back right wheels were actually already blown out at that point on the highway. So that had already occurred. You know, it looks like someone's seriously injured here. We just don't know who it is yet.
Yeah, it looked like they were on rims for quite a bit. And Brendan, I wanted to ask you too, not, you know, for many of us, we're not necessarily that familiar with the Gwinnett County transit system, but I do know Atlanta News First has done investigations about assaults for MARTA bus drivers, say for instance, right? A number of cities right now, especially after COVID, there's lots of barriers between the drivers and the passengers. Don't know exactly what the scenario was and how that was laid out on, say, this Gwinnett County bus here, but there could have possibly been a barrier, and it kind of makes you wonder now, will transit agencies across the metro start to rethink we need a lot more buffers between the drivers and passengers? It's
a sad thing we even have to mention that because we've hardened the target so much. But at some point, you know, sometimes even those barriers, they have a little sliding open window. You know, it's not clear exactly what could have been done in this particular case and whether there was enough protection. And it's horrifying to think that the driver was at the controls. This is what we were hearing over the radio, was that the driver, the hostage taker, was threatening to shoot the driver. And therefore the driver was, you know, plowing through police cars and acting at the direction of the hostage taker. It's horrifying to put yourself in the head of that driver having to choose between you getting shot and then ramming into police cars and civilian vehicles.
And from what you heard, there was no indication of where they were headed, like, you know, we need to get to this spot or that spot, or no indication on a destination.
Well, the thing was, there was no communication. You know, you hear it in the movies that, oh, you know, there's a communication set up between the hostage taker and the police who have negotiators. It doesn't appear there was any communication. What we were hearing over the scanner traffic, it didn't sound, it was just observers, the officers who were seeing what was going on through the window, and there wasn't any communication. You know, the hostage taker at that point was in control, and the police had to follow and try to anticipate. At one point, actually, it looked like he was going to get off it.
Are we able to take the Atlanta News First chopper here really quick? It looks like an ambulance just arrived there on scene. And here we go. Okay, so we're looking right now at the ambulance that just pulled in, and we're going to go back to this DOT shot as they likely, you know, put somebody or persons.
The possible bus driver
Yes.
maybe inside that
Exactly.
ambulance.
Can I bring one more thing up,
Sure.
if I
Of course.
may? Atlanta police were one of the lead agencies on this from the beginning, and they were involved in the takedown of the bus. It's important to point out, because we actually saw this in the earlier incident today, the shooting, where they were able to use tourniquets on the victims to immediately stop the bleeding, or at least try to stop the bleeding. You know, it's not required that police officers render aid even to someone they've shot. It's not required by law. It is in the Atlanta police policy. They are required to render aid immediately, whether it's a victim, an innocent victim, or even a suspected perpetrator. And Atlanta police actually issues tourniquets to every single one of their officers.
Wow.
So they are equipped to immediately deal with the stop the bleed kits that other departments aren't even issued. And in this case, it may have been decisive.
If you're just now joining us here on Atlanta News First, we are following breaking news here at this hour, a high-speed bus chase down I-85 that ends in what we believe could be potentially injured persons that were on board that bus. This is video from earlier this afternoon showing the Gwinnett County transit bus slamming in and out of police officers and civilian cars, everyday people just likely going home from work. Here it is about to make this left in between traffic and run right into the back of this gray sedan. This was a pattern we saw repeated over and over and over again. We understand from scanner traffic is told, and there's he is slamming, or he or she slamming directly into the back of that police car. We were told this was a hostage situation. That is from the scanner traffic that we heard here in Atlanta News First. Officers communicating back and forth between one another that somebody on board this bus was holding the bus driver hostage. I believe this all started, Tracy, over at Ivan Allen Boulevard with some kind of incident as we watch this spike strip video. The officer nailing the back tires, but the bus, Tracy, not slowing down.
Yeah, not slowing down at all. And as you mentioned, Allen, starting at Ivan Allen Drive, so going through Fulton County, DeKalb County, Gwinnett County, and then ending there on Silver Hill Road near Stone Mountain. So what a frightening afternoon for a lot of people who were on the roadways, you know, trying to get home, trying to get to work in some occasions there. From that video from earlier today, the back of that SUV nearly clipped by that bus. And here we have the bus going the wrong way on that intersection there, driving in the turn lane. You can actually see some smoke from the back tires
there. It is, yeah.
I think he's just riding on rims for the most part, as much as he could there.
Look at that.
Just kind of weaving in and out of traffic. And again, amazing skill and work done by law enforcement across the metro in making sure no other people were injured in this scenario, because unfortunately, the toll of those injured could be very high when you're talking about during rush hour on these well-traveled roads. Anyone in Metro Atlanta knows traffic is crazy, especially this time of day. And for officers to really call ahead and get those units in those intersections to clear them out as quickly as they can. It looked like, you know, in some cases they were right in front of that bus trying to get other vehicles off the road and clear the way for this bus there. It is just incredible. And as things stand right now, a live image, I think this is
I think
live
that's people
right now.
getting off the bus.
Earlier, okay.
There you go.
These are some of the people who were on the bus. This is from our first alert chopper there. You can see that gentleman getting on the ground there. We believe he may be a passenger. A number of passengers getting off that bus. Unclear exactly how many people were on the bus at the time. Unclear if any of them sustained any injuries. You know, there had to be a lot of bumping and shuffling going on with the bus, you know, riding on rims there, getting its back tires blown out and nearly running into other vehicles there. So just an incredible, incredible day, but so happy to report that this has really come to an end. The next step now, of course, is check on the condition of that bus driver who we believe was held at gunpoint, really directed where to go. Here again from our first alert chopper, that video of that suspect as he's being taken into custody. This man here, from what we understand, this all started as an altercation on the bus, some kind of argument, something happening on that Gwinnett County transit bus near Ivan Allen Boulevard, in this really stretching about 30-45 minutes, I think, pursuit there.
They were rolling for a while, and we've just been told that police are clearing out of that intersection right near Silver Hill Road. They are starting to move out of that area, which leads you to believe, and we can take a look right here. About 10 minutes ago, we took this same live image, and there were a whole lot of officers blocking this entire intersection. They are now rolling out, I believe, or at least they believe they have their suspect in custody from the gentleman or the person we saw in custody there. This is a live look from the Atlanta News First chopper overhead. It looks like they're having a conversation about what happened here. Brendan, what could they be discussing in this moment?
It looks to me like they're briefing command staff, which is pretty standard. And then that command staff briefs us. I mean, I know Atlanta Police is involved, Georgia State Patrol. They're actually very good at briefing us. You know, Chief Sherbaum at the shooting incident earlier today, it's been an extraordinary day of breaking news, gave a very clear, factual recitation of what happened. And in order to give us that, he's got to get it from his commanders. That's pretty standard. They're going to sort of check notes because everybody is looking at this through a straw, so to speak. Yeah. Each one of the participants only knows what they could see. So then what they do is they can compare notes. It's sort of like clearing that fog of war so they get the facts. And also, you want to make sure, hey, we've got this person in custody. Do we have everybody? And it sounds like they do. Based on just the body language of the officers that we saw, it looks like they're okay. And then as you're seeing here from this video, we've got multiple scenes here. This isn't just one scene. Nope. Everywhere there was an impact, and you've got a multi-county situation too. So you've got DeKalb County where this all ended, Gwinnett County on both Jimmy Carter Boulevard and I-85, and you've got it all the way back to the city of Atlanta and where they were involved because, this all was right essentially at where these counties meet. So there's multiple scenes here, and hopefully we don't have multiple injuries.
Yeah, and Brendan, I want to bring up, the officers have a lot of work ahead of them. We have that in the intersection right there that you're looking at. And of course, speaking to the passengers on this bus, what happened? What did you see? What did you hear? What was said to you? I'm sure that's a lot of this, that's in order to piece this all together to find out how did this start and what was happening on this bus.
I've got an answer for you, Tracy, that there's cameras on that bus. So there are multiple cameras on these buses now, and they're always recording. So we are going to have, maybe not we, but the police are going to immediately have video
access,
and in some cases audio that's going to tell them exactly what happened.
And that'll be front to back, exactly like Brendan just said. Walk us through this timeline that we are so actively trying to figure out at this hour right now. This is, again, video from earlier today. Another one of these scenes where this four-door sedan right there getting slammed.
He's like, oh, and it runs into another car. How many insurance claims are we going to have after today, unfortunately?
A lot of people filing probably right now as we speak. We saw that other scene, the aftermath, where that one person was outside of the vehicle on the phone with somebody. It could have been their loved ones very actively. It could have been their State Farm. It could have been Progressive, whoever we know. So to make sure that we're going to keep this in check here, where we're keeping our eyes on all of these scenes repeatedly, stop sticks right there.
Right.
And there they go, the back tires. We now know actually went out, they did work. It just didn't stop the bus.
And once again, just take a look at this image. This from just a little bit earlier today, soon after this pursuit began, really officers being able to call ahead and clear the path for that bus. Jackie, our producer, you mentioned how many pounds this bus? 54,000 pounds.
Not hundreds, 54,000.
Right. As Brendan mentioned, this is a lethal weapon here. So you have this bus. Imagine seeing that in your rear view mirror barreling towards you, or in your front windshield barreling towards you, because now he's going the wrong way on the other side of traffic. So again, officers did an incredible job calling ahead, really making sure they cleared the intersections. They stopped all those drivers. They were able to get pedestrians out of the the way and make sure everyone was safe. Again, now we get to this point where the other part of that investigation begins in terms of, what this looks like for the people who were on that bus. How traumatizing is that?
My goodness. No, just to even think about looking, because when you're on the highway, when you're driving around the roadways, you're always thinking about safety. And I know a lot of people, when they're behind the wheel, they get nervous around big rigs, 18-wheelers, buses, that kind of thing, because you have an understanding, even if it's subconscious, of just how dangerous an accident could be with one of these 1,000-pound killing machines. If the wrong person is behind the wheel, 99.99% of the time, everything's fine and everybody gets home safe and sound. But in this incident, when you've got what we now know is a 16-mile chase through Gwinnett County, high-speed chase down the highway during rush hour, started, now we know, again, downtown Atlanta, Ivan Allen Boulevard, we believe, all the way from downtown, all the way over to now where we end, Silver Hill Road, that's near Tucker area, I should say. This is scary. It is scary to think about, and it's scary to put yourself behind the wheel of some of these people who are now picking up the pieces, not only of their sanity and their sense of security, but Tracy, their cars too. It's
scary to put yourself in the seat of one of those passengers on that bus.
Exactly, which is way worse.
Yeah, and that's what I'm concerned about here is really, how those folks are doing at this hour. Let's show you this video from just not too long ago when officers were able to take that suspected gunman into custody. They're really trying to get him in the vehicle as quickly as they can, really trying to draw this situation to a close. These are live images you're looking at right now. Well, after that suspect taken into custody, well, after those passengers on the bus have been taken off, we are working to learn the condition of the bus driver held at gunpoint there. Not sure how they are doing, hoping they are okay and no doubt taken to the hospital. Hopefully they can be released very soon after such a stressful day and a day that, they're just trying to get up and go to work. You know what? Make a living today, run my bus route. That's what I was supposed to do. And here you have a gunman directing you to speed through traffic and basically plow down anything in your path.
I'm sure everybody on board that bus, including that driver, started their day learning about that shooting at the Peachtree Street Mall, right downtown.
And saying,
they said,
I'm glad I wasn't in downtown.
I'm glad that wasn't me. How terrifying is that to be in any incident where your life is in danger? And then who knows, maybe an hour later, 2 hours later, after we start learning details, this bus gets taken hostage. At least that's what people are talking about. Look, we've got Atlanta News First anchor Savannah Louie right now, who was one of the very first people to be alerted to this situation. She's been following it since we first learned that there could be an incident on board this bus. Savannah, what can you tell us?
Yeah, so right now we are piecing together a timeline about how all of this happened. I want to go over it with you. Atlanta police say that they responded to 45 Ivan Allen Jr. Boulevard Northeast, that's in downtown Atlanta, about some sort of dispute on a Gwinnett County transit bus. That happening around 4:45 this afternoon. Our entire newsroom eyes on this scene as it was unfolding here. That bus then took off up I-85. Now take a look at some of this video. We captured some of that pursuit on I-85 from our G.dot cameras. If you take a look at your screen here, a lot of traffic, but you can see that red bus zooming past here and someone attempting to throw something. It appeared to be some sort of spike strip in front of that bus to try to get it to stop or slow down. Did not work though. Now eventually that bus did come to a stop. This happening on Hugh Howell Road in DeKalb County, and this again was around 5 o'clock. So about 15 minutes, we watched this chase go down. And what you're seeing on your screen here now, about half dozen people getting off that bus, hands over their head, people we believe to be hostages getting off that bus before armored police vehicles box that bus in. More video here. It shows the first responders surrounding the bus. And I mean, you can really see here clearly just how many people were involved in this takedown. The first alert chopper capturing that man, the suspect, in a white t-shirt being hauled off by police. And again, this was shortly after 5 o'clock this afternoon. No word on the condition of that suspect or any of those other folks who we saw earlier in that video, the folks who appear to be hostages with their hands above their heads. We know that a number of law enforcement agencies were involved in this chase. Atlanta News First currently has crews on the ground right now heading to this scene to get more information about how this all transpired, along with some of the condition of the folks who were involved there. As soon as we get that information, we'll be sure to pass it to you on air, as well as online or the Atlanta News First app. This is a developing story. Those details coming in very quickly this evening. But as they do come in, you will be the first to know if you stick with Atlanta News First, guys.
All right, Savannah, thank you. Here's a live look at one of our DOT cameras. This is actually the intersection not far from where that bus was finally stopped and that suspect taken into custody near Hugh Howell and Deer Ridge Road. Again, this not too far from Stone Mountain Freeway in that area there. And it looks like officers are letting some vehicles go through, but they have a massive investigation right now. Alan, to get through. So there is a lot of paperwork to be done, a lot of people to speak to, and a lot of things to happen. If we take a live look right now at our chopper, our first alert chopper, it looks like someone else was loaded into an ambulance. Again, we understand that that's empty right now.
But it's on scene.
It's on the scene just in case someone else needed to be transported. Again, we don't know the disposition of some of the passengers on the bus. It didn't appear as though any had any injuries, but we still have not gotten that information. There possibly could have been some injuries to the bus driver who was held at gunpoint.
And I want to walk you through just what we've observed here at Atlanta News First as we watch this unfold with you all at home. It appears as though, from our understanding, the bus driver, or at least the person who was driving this bus when this all happened, was wearing a bright neon green or yellow vest. We then saw what appeared to be that person off of the bus later on. We didn't show that on air, but we're checking to see if that driver was injured in any way. About 3 or 4 minutes later from our live camera, this is another live look, and it kind of confirms what I was talking about. Excuse me, this is video from earlier, what I believe is the passengers getting off the bus. Yeah, here they are getting off the bus. So shortly after this moment, about 5 minutes after we showed you this moment live on air, we saw the person get off the bus in that neon vest, who we also saw behind the wheel while the bus was being driven. 3 minutes after we saw that person on the floor there with EMS and police surrounding that person was no longer on the floor. So he or she was very quickly transported out of that area, and likely what was that Grady ambulance that showed up really quickly and then sped off from what we saw. We're in and out of the live images here for a number of reasons. We don't need or want to put, and it looks like this is a live image right now as I speak of it. This is a live look at investigators, APD, EMS, fire, all on scene there surrounding this bus as we speak, and you can see a mess of what looks like the leftover of the EMTs and the police responding to that passenger door, or the passenger side door, I should say, of that bus. We watched spike strips. We watched police officers trying to jump in front of the bus. We watched blockades happen, and none of it worked. So we've got some perspective on exactly maybe what police couldn't have done to make this happen as we take a GDOT camera here showing the intersection, I believe. Yes, a live look right here. I want to bring back in Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe here to chat with him for a little bit, as again, he's got decades of experience with exactly this. Brendan, you just heard me talk about here. Nothing was stopping this bus. There was nothing they were doing at the time that worked up until the end there. And mind you, this is not a knock at responding officers. They did everything they could, and they did it very, very well, I might add, and brought this bus to a close and hopefully brought those passengers to safety. Is there any other tactics they could have used or tried to stop a 54,000-pound bus, as we take some new video here from GDOT cameras showing what was likely towards the beginning of this police chase, Brendan?
Well, and that's the part right there, is they get this training called evac training. So what that is essentially the pursuit vehicle training that includes pit maneuvers, the precision intervention technique, which is obviously just tapping the rear quarter panel and trying to get the bus out of control. That's not going to happen because of the weight differential. They simply didn't have a vehicle that was capable of doing a pit maneuver on that bus. The next thing you want to do is, once the bus stops, they train all the time on storming buses, especially the SWAT team. It's one of the things they train to storm is a bus, because it might be a school bus involved in a school shooting, or in this case, obviously, a regular city bus. It's important to point out what could have been done and was not done, and it's a frightening scenario to consider, Alan, is that in the past, police have actually shot the hostage in order to stop a bus, or in the case that I covered, we just did a story just last year on a hostage who was shot driving a dump truck. Driving that dump truck, the driver was shot even though they knew the driver was being held hostage at gunpoint because it was the only way to stop the bus. And you say, really? Can police shoot the hostage? The 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals here in Atlanta said yes. In order to protect the public, they can intentionally shoot the hostage. That did not happen in this case, apparently, as far as we know. And again, we don't know all the details. It could have happened because we just don't know yet how that driver, if that's who we believe was injured, was injured. It could have been a heart attack. He could have been shot by the hostage taker. He could have been shot by police. What I can tell you is that in a very recent case here in North Georgia, the 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals said, yes, you can shoot the hostage in order to stop a large, massive vehicle. In that case, it was a dump truck. In this case, a bus. They could have shot the hostage to stop the bus if they believed it would have saved more lives. Frightening to think of, but they really don't have a lot of other options at this point. We're not saying that's what happened. We're saying they did have that legal right to do that if they believed that there was an imminent danger of serious bodily injury or death to the public. And clearly that was the case here. It's going to be interesting to hear these details. And as we pointed out a moment ago, it's very likely this bus didn't just have one camera, but multiple cameras pointed in several directions. If it's anything like MARTA buses, when we've requested video from MARTA, we get 10 cameras, outside, inside, left, right, center. And we're going to have some very clear understanding of what transpired and when.
And, you know, we just got this update, Brendan, from APD that they do say one person has been taken into custody, but right now they don't expect to provide any additional information to us. But, you know, APD, you said, took the lead on this chase, right?
Well, we were listening to both Georgia State Patrol and Atlanta Police. They were actually backing off the main contact pursuit. And they were yielding that to Georgia State Patrol. It's not clear why, but they were very clearly instructing the Atlanta police officers to provide assistance to both in advance of the bus and after the bus, but not direct contact. It's very often they will assign a lead vehicle. That lead vehicle can change, but the lead agency in this case was the Georgia State Patrol, assisted by Atlanta Police. And of course, it went through multiple jurisdictions, including Gwinnett and DeKalb.
And just a quick question, here in Atlanta Police, we've seen a number of police chases, unfortunately. Georgia State Patrol generally is allowed to pursue here as opposed to other agencies, right?
Georgia State Patrol has one of the most liberal, for lack of a better term, pursuit policies, and that's because the Georgia State Patrol is not a state police agency in terms of an investigative agency. You know, in some other states, you have a state police that is also, you know, an agency that does major investigations. The Georgia State Patrol largely is a traffic or highway patrol. And as a highway patrol, their main job is obviously doing, you know, interdiction on the highway. That's drug interdiction and traffic enforcement. And if people knew that all you had to do is drive away from the Georgia State Patrol and they couldn't pursue you, they'd never be able to stop the most dangerous felons. Exactly. So the Georgia State Patrol does have an intentional policy. It's still a very strict policy. It's important to point out Georgia State Patrol does not have body cameras. I actually broke that story a couple of years ago, and we saw it in terms of the police academy, the police so-called cop city that they're trying to build. When the shooting took place out there, Georgia State Patrol does not use body cameras. They use dash cameras, and very often the dash cameras do not catch the very end when they use deadly force because it happens off camera. They rely heavily on these Motorola dash cameras. They have two angles. There's a front angle, and then there's a wider front angle. But Atlanta Police does use body cameras, so we'll probably have that clarity as well. Atlanta Police has a much more strict pursuit policy. The public has to be at risk. It can't just be someone fleeing a traffic violation, but a fleeing felon. In this case, you've got the classic fleeing felon case. This is when you basically pull out all the stops. Any agency would have pursued this vehicle.
So another look here at the video from earlier this afternoon. This is a Gwinnett County transit bus, and we've learned that just from looking at the lettering on the side of the bus here. A high-speed police chase starting in downtown Atlanta, right near Ivan Allen Boulevard, and ending over near Stone Mountain, Silver Hill Road area. This is down I-85 exactly. And like I said, Silver Hill Road, to be more precisely here, Hugh Howell and Deer Ridge Drive. Those were the two sections, that intersection we were talking about. Here's video of stop sticks being deployed on the back tires of this bus. We later learned that it was likely effective in some way, but not effective enough to stop this bus here. As the video goes on, we'll be able to see it swerving in and out of traffic, hitting several more cars, and then going the wrong way down the roadway. And when it gives us a different angle here, we'll be able to see the back tires. It did look like some damage was done. It was pretty much riding on rims there, the metal on these back tires. Here's the bus making a left turn. Now it's going the wrong direction in traffic. And thankfully, people are moving out of the way because this could have been a lot worse. There could have been a lot more people involved in these accidents. And there's another clip right there. And look at that blue car having to back up as fast as they could, running into another car behind it, but avoiding this bus. This was some quick thinking from some people out there on the roadway because this bus was not stopping. It cut right through that center turning lane back into the normal direction of traffic. GSP, Atlanta Police, Gwinnett County Police in hot pursuit. Here they are trailing this bus as it's flying down the roadway. Another officer running way out, taking lead, which what could have been another intersection stop to prevent people from slamming into this bus. It could have been another attempt at spike strips. Anything. As it passes through an intersection, it looks like, yeah, it was another, please do not come through this intersection. We're dealing with a high-speed police chase from a 54,000-pound bus.
And Alan, when you think about it, and again, this is all speculation here. We don't have the full story. We hope to have that within the next day or so. But we may need to credit the bus driver with this, with being able, the bus driver is the one behind the wheel, from what we understand, being held at gunpoint by this suspect. So the bus driver is probably being told, possibly, don't stop. Whatever you do, don't stop. And this bus driver is doing everything they can to not run into anyone, to, spare as many vehicles as possible, to find the path of least resistance. So a lot of the credit may go to this bus driver, who is just trying to do whatever they can to not stop and to not hit as many vehicles as possible and to not harm anyone else on the roadway. Because that bus driver in a vest was the last person we saw in the driver's seat right before they took the suspected gunman into custody. So again, so much to this story, and there's a lot to unpack here, and so much that investigators probably have to get down to. And as Brendan mentioned, we have cameras on that bus and a lot of information within that, and a lot of information from those passengers who were on that bus at the time. Again, to recap for you, just what an incredible breaking news day, from a shooting in downtown Atlanta to now this bus chase that really started in downtown Atlanta. Not too long after that, a bus chase that lasted 16 miles going through Fulton, DeKalb, and Gwinnett County, and ending there near Stone Mountain at Hugh Hill and Deer Ridge Drive. The suspect, the person believed to be holding that bus driver at gunpoint, taken into custody. We saw that not too long ago. No injuries to that suspect. The driver of that bus, we believe, was given first aid by first responders, then taken off into an ambulance. We are working to learn the condition of that bus driver. A number of passengers on that bus all got off. From what we could see, it appears that there were no injuries sustained to them. We are working to get that information as well. But what a day. And really, we have to say, an amazing job by law enforcement, by Georgia State Patrol, by Gwinnett County officers, I believe, who were there, Atlanta Police Department as well, clearing the path for this bus to get through, and all of it coming to an end there near Stone Mountain.
And Tracy, I think you have to also credit the drivers of the Atlanta metro area. I mean, all kidding aside, this is a tough place to drive. I've lived all over the country, and I've covered so many police chases. I've never seen such excellent evasive maneuvers from drivers who are in the path. You have to imagine you're sitting there in traffic, all of a sudden there's a bus coming at you and you don't know why. They were able to reverse out of the way. Others were able to dodge out of the way. I mean, that's pretty extraordinary. But I mean, look, if you've driven I-85 and you've been in the left lane and you see someone already, jet over to the right lane to exit at full speed and then some, I mean, that gives you a little bit of experience in this particular case. One other point is that we keep calling them, by the way, stop sticks. What we saw deployed earlier were actually spike strips. So there is a slight difference. Stop sticks are rigid. Stop sticks are rigid and basically made of a dense cardboard, and inside are these hollow spikes. And those hollow spikes, when you can handle these, they won't actually puncture your hands or scratch you in any way because the spikes are inside of that rigid, hard cardboard, if you will. When the weight of the tires drives over it, it punctures basically through that dense cardboard, and those hollow spikes then embed themselves in the tire, immediately depleting all of the air and air pressure in the tires. That's how stop sticks work. The problem with stop sticks is they stay out in the roadway and then the police cars run over them and they have a problem too. Spike strips are different. Spike strips have those same hollow spikes, if you will, but they're on a retractable, almost accordion-style piece of plastic with a rope. So what happens is the officer deploys them, that accordion goes out, the suspect vehicle, or in this case the bus, drives over it, and then to make sure the pursuing vehicles don't also get caught in it, the officer then retracts the stop stick. Or I should say the spike strips. So there is a slight distinction, and the spike strips are usually more effective. That's what they used in this case, in both cases, both on Jimmy Carter Boulevard, where they definitely struck the front left tires, and also on I-85, where they're able to get those back tires. The other problem you have with a bus, though, is that you're talking about a bus that has multiple tires. In the back, even though when you're driving alongside a bus, you only see that one large tire or two sets there, there's another set of tires inboard from that. So if you don't get both of those, the bus continues on its way.
Brendan, thank you for your expertise. Of course, right now, make sure you download our free Atlanta News First breaking news app. We will have more information for you there. The 6 is next.
Atlanta News First starts now with breaking news.
Atlanta News First, staying on top of breaking news. You're looking at the dramatic end to a police chase through 2 separate counties at the height of rush hour traffic. One person taken into custody after the driver rammed through oncoming traffic before coming to a stop on the side of the road. Atlanta News First was the first on air. This is the 6. I'm Sean Gables.
And I'm Blair Miller. This pursuit spanned 16 miles and it lasted almost 40 minutes. This map here puts it together for you. It began in downtown Atlanta and eventually made its way through Gwinnett and DeKalb counties. As we watch this with you here this afternoon, at one point the bus appeared to almost tip over. Georgia State Patrol used spike strips and pit maneuvers to stop the drivers.
Live pictures right now showing the scene. Things are still active. That's to be expected given the kind of day it has been.
And this situation still unfolding as we speak, and we show you those live pictures from the air. Now more live pictures from the ground, and you can see it's still a very active situation. We saw those passengers coming off the bus with their hands in the air. This all taking place south on Jimmy Carter Boulevard at one point after getting off Interstate 85 and then heading into DeKalb County. That's where this is live now on the ground. Police have not confirmed any details to Atlanta News First yet.
Let's go to our breaking news desk. Savannah Louie is there. Savannah, you've been talking with Atlanta Police Department, also GPS, who've all been working together in tandem on this. Walk us through this investigation.
Yeah, so right now we're really learning more about what exactly went on today. What you just saw there was a scene of a bunch of people gathered. The investigation's still ongoing at this hour. Earlier today, though, just around 4:45, when the initial call came in to the scene there, the bus incident began in downtown Atlanta. We're told that someone took that bus, the Gwinnett County bus, from the location in downtown Atlanta and began speeding towards Gwinnett County. Over the course of a number of minutes there, we saw people using spike strips, a number of law enforcement agencies using spike strips to try to slow that bus down. Throughout that pursuit, we also saw some of the tires, which appeared to blow out as that bus was zooming on by. If you take a look at your screen there, there's a video from some of our GDOT cameras that have showed that bus going. Now, if you take a look at your screen here, this is a video from our Atlanta News First Alert chopper that shows the moment the bus pulled over near Stone Mountain. And what you're seeing here is a number of hostages leaving that bus, being kicked off the bus, hands over their head, as a number of law enforcement agencies surrounded the bus, trying to detain the person who was suspected in this bus chase here. Now, if we go to our next video, I believe we see, yes, this is what we're looking at here. So this is the moment where first responders are able to pull that suspect off of the bus, the person they believe is responsible for chasing this bus here. You can see a number of folks walking him towards a police vehicle, that man there in the white t-shirt. And again, dozens of officers apprehending this man. We still are working to learn the latest details as to who this person is, why this person ended up taking over that bus, along with the condition of the suspect and any of those hostages who were involved in this situation. We have a number of crews at that scene right now, a couple of different Atlanta News First crews on the scene right now. We are told that the area is still very heavily involved in traffic. A lot of congestion around this area because of the bus chase. If this area near Stone Mountain is near your drive home, just be aware that there is going to be quite a few issues getting past it and as you head out on the roads tonight. But from here, we're going to continue to keep you updated on any latest developments regarding this bus chase situation. Guys.
Savannah, thank you. Let's go back to the live scene right now where there was a heavy police presence. If we could get the vantage point of actually where the bus is still there as police do their investigation. If you've noted, what I noticed during this chase when we were live, and if we could show the front of that bus, there was a blinking sign. We're not quite sure. We are asking because the bus belongs to Gwinnett County Transit, which operates commuter routes throughout Metro Atlanta in that county. Okay, there you see that emergency digital sign. I noticed that when I was watching this live.
It says call police 911.
And it says call police 911, emergency. It's unclear at the time if this electronic sign on the front of the bus which read emergency and then call police 911. Was this alerted by the actual driver of this bus, or was that something that dispatch was able to do with technology from the bus hub? We are asking that question, but it was scary to watch. Your heart goes out. There were multiple passengers aboard this bus as it was driving for almost 20 miles for almost 50 minutes.
And so many close calls as we were watching this go from county to county, leaving from downtown Atlanta and then heading into Gwinnett County, going down 85, getting off Jimmy Carter Boulevard. So many close calls with that bus driver, and you could see the bus driver behind the wheel there. And so it was just frightening to watch all that.
It was almost impossible to take your eyes away from the scene when you saw traffic, the bus going into oncoming traffic, several cars, near misses. And then the bus plowed through intersections, plowed through red lights, all of it. As we watch this unfold on Atlanta News First, we have Tori Cooper, who is also covering this part of the story. Tori, you were in studio when all of this was unfolding. Walk us through the images that you saw.
Sean, you really described it, the way that people watched this unfold as it was all transpiring. It's something that makes you hold your breath. When this initially happened,
and Tori, we're going to stop you for a second. There's some technical errors there, but we have Brandon Keefe.
And he's been, it's been really helpful to talk to him about, how police are kind of unfolding it. It's unpacking this because you have a number of law enforcement agencies involved with this. And looking at the investigation, let's bring in Brendan Keefe now with more on what kind of investigation we may be looking at here, Brendan.
It's such a different investigation than we would have seen years ago. Years ago, you would have talked to the witnesses on the bus. Of course, they're going to do that. But what we have is the technology already on the bus. These buses have about 10 cameras. The cameras show the exterior, the front and back of the bus. They also show the left and the right. That's obviously also for traffic accidents, but there are cameras on the bus as well. So police will have almost immediate access to that because the data is stored on the bus, almost like a black box. So they can extract that data with the help of Gwinnett Transit, and they can look at exactly what happened on the bus. That is not monitored in real time. It's important to point out it's different than the other cameras they can monitor in real time. They can't monitor what's going on the bus in real time, but they can go back in time, if you will. It's like having a black box or time travel because they can go back to that video and see what happened before the incident, during the incident, and then how the incident transpired. The questions that I have as an investigative reporter here at Atlanta News First Investigates, we're going to want to know exactly what happened at the end of this moment, at the end of this incident. How did it end? How did they stop the bus? The video, unfortunately, was blocked from our view by the trees because it was a heavily wooded area right there on the roadway. But what we do know is they did use a SWAT vehicle, an armored SWAT vehicle. And they had really impressive tactics, honestly. They had an overwatch officer, a sniper officer with a long rifle on top of that SWAT unit right in front of the bus window. And then also they made a breach. They decided to breach and go in immediately, not to have a standoff or a prolonged incident. We don't know exactly why that happened, and we don't know how that person we saw being treated on the ground was injured. It could have been a heart attack. Let's face it. Look at what's going on. You're being held at gunpoint as the driver. It could be some other medical condition. We do know they were doing pretty extraordinary efforts there on the ground, including CPR. We don't know for sure if it was the driver at this point, but we also don't know if someone was shot. There were SWAT officers there engaging the bus, and they're going to treat anyone coming off that bus as a suspect until they know otherwise at that point. What we do know just from the scanner traffic is that you had police talking to each other about a driver held hostage at gunpoint who had no choice but to follow the instructions of the person who is holding them at gunpoint. It's pretty extraordinary to think about that. So obviously the investigators are going to be looking at that, but they have that video, and that's important. Back to your point, Sean, about the emergency 911 call police on the bus. These buses are equipped with essentially silent alarms like you would have in a bank. This is a button the driver could have pressed without alerting the hostage taker at all. And that is going to immediately change the display on the bus. It is a good question if dispatch can also initiate that in some fashion, but the driver definitely can. It is a panic button. It goes all the way back to the New York City taxi system. They've had that in place now for 40 years, where a driver of a taxi can hit a button. It essentially lights up a little yellow light. Next time you're in New York, you'll see it, little yellow light on the back of the taxi. That is the panic button that every police officer in New York knows. When you see that button, you stop that taxi. That's what appears to have happened in this case. We don't know if that's how police were alerted, but it did tell everybody this is no normal bus. This bus is in an emergent situation.
And Brendan, real quickly, I just want to ask you this question, because security obviously is an issue. The biggest issue for passengers who get on public transit is their safety. And there is a lot of questions right now that we are asking of both the department itself, police, as well as the bus department. How do you protect a passenger? Because there is, you go to the airport, you go through security, you go to your public school, you've got the gun scan. I mean, they're scanning for metal detectors.
But not a bus.
But so on a public transit, on a bus, how are we going to protect passengers so they are not in fear of this happening again?
Situation like this.
You know, it's a really good question. What do you do? I mean, there is technology. There's kill switches. And that's a question going forward. Do you put a kill switch on a bus where the bus can be slowed down and stopped remotely? There's all sorts of technology that dispatch has to communicate with this bus. Do we get to a point where they can activate a switch that will essentially slow the bus down and stop it? But then again, you have a hostage taker on the bus. Is that going to aggravate the hostage taker? Is that going to then make the situation even worse? It certainly would stop this moving crime scene. You know, when I was an auxiliary police officer, my field training officer was a New York City transit cop. And what he said is when you have an incident on a transit system, it is a moving crime scene. That crime scene is going through multiple jurisdictions. The other thing is, and this is what he taught us about the subway, how do you call in, I'm on the Uptown 2 train and there's a gunman? Well, there's 5 Uptown 2 trains. And how do you know which one? They all have numbers. And those numbers are displayed inside the bus as well. Next time you're on a bus, notice there's a number. The reason the number is there, so if you can call 911, you're not just on any bus, you're on bus 5421 or whatever it is. And even the doors are numbered. So you can say, I'm behind L1 door. It's that detailed, and it's something they teach the officers. And you need to have that situational awareness as a passenger as well.
Well, we know we have a lot to cover today. Make sure you download the free Atlanta News First breaking news app.
There's also other news happening out there. We want to get a check on the weather with our Chief Meteorologist, Jennifer Valdez, because we have a heat wave coming, and this is going to impact a lot of people as well. Jennifer?
Yeah, today was really nice, but we are tracking some big changes on the way. A first alert weather day Friday and Saturday. This is a low impact event. Thankfully, the humidity will not be incredibly high, but the heat will be. We are forecasting temperatures in the mid to upper 90s 90s. It will be near record heat. In fact, we are forecasting to at least tie the record high for Friday, near record high on Saturday, and it will stay dry through the rest of the week into the weekend. So we're not worried about any rain, but we are worried about the heat. Right now, it is beautiful outside. We are in the mid 80s. The humidity has been low for today. It will start to creep up tomorrow as those temperatures start to creep up as well. Lows tonight will be a little warmer than they were last night. We'll drop to the mid 60s. Then tomorrow we are back to 90 degrees. We're going to start off a long stretch of 90-degree days. Coming up, I'll show you how hot it's going to get for those first alert weather days and impacts for the weekend.
Thanks. Atlanta News First is staying on top of major breaking news that's happening right now. We were talking about this is bus crash that ended here in DeKalb County. As we show you live pictures, first responders on the scene. This bus chase started at downtown Atlanta. We have crews fanned out covering this breaking story for you here tonight.
And at one point, the driver went into oncoming traffic, a bunch of near misses. The bus hit several vehicles during the pursuit as well. Police, we are asking questions. They have declined to comment on whether anyone involved in the incident has been injured. We did see at some point emergency personnel responding. It appeared to be giving CPR to one of the people that were on that bus. We are asking questions. We'll have more both on air and online. We'll be right back.
You took out a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Welcome back. We're still continuing to follow our breaking news where one person is in custody for basically hijacking a Gwinnett County transit bus that was led on a police chase during the height of rush hour, spanning 2 different counties. lasting for almost 50 minutes. Multiple people were on that bus as it was having near misses, plowing through intersections, and finally ending with multiple police agencies with their weapons drawn to pull that driver out.
I still can't get over how many close calls there were. When we were watching this in the newsroom as a team, as we were trying to get information from news sources on this, but also watching this, how many close calls when this started in downtown Atlanta and went through Gwinnett County into DeKalb County, so many close calls.
Jaws were falling to the floor.
It really was something if you were not watching this live. And I want to bring in now Atlanta News First anchor Tori Cooper, who was watching this pursuit along with us. And Tori, this was just something.
Yeah, and this is really the type of scene as a journalist that you show up to after you get deployed to. But this time I was right here in the newsroom watching this all unfold in real time. And at that point, we really just have to adjust to the situation. We did not know if this bus was going to pull over, but you see it there pictured on this GDOT camera. This is the height of rush hour, as Sean was just mentioning. Here's some spike strips that they tried to deploy in that scene that you just saw. It didn't work. Then he rear ends this sedan that you're looking at, and that's when we really knew this was now a dangerous situation to everyone. And then it finally came to a close after it went through Jimmy Carter Boulevard into right off of Interstate 85. Then you see the hostages now getting off of the bus. They're trying to see who the suspect is. Each person on that bus is getting on the ground. And then we're of course blocked by the tree view, but then we get that really dramatic scene of them pulling, there it is, that's the one I'm talking about, them dragging this suspect to a police car. They have him in custody in this moment, but now this investigation is still unfolding in real time. They are going to go through each step of this to try to figure out how this all transpired. We know that there was an altercation that happened on the bus, and then that's when the suspect took hold of the bus. It was a hostage situation, and in real time, we were watching this with all of Atlanta. And you can see right now in these live pictures, police are doing everything to canvass this bus for any evidence that they can. And of course, as we get more updates, we'll share it with you right here on Atlanta News First.
And Tori, I was going to point out, so many agencies involved in this. We have not heard officially from police on this. They have not held a news conference on this. And you got to keep in mind, so many different agencies were involved. Our understanding is that Atlanta Police is the lead agency on this right now. So they have to be in touch with DeKalb County, Gwinnett County, and state authorities, state patrol on this.
And then we're also concerned about the care, the well-being, the mental health of the hostages who were aboard this bus. They went through 2 counties. It lasted for almost 50 minutes. When they were pulled off of the bus, hands were in the air. They were on their knees. Police had weapons drawn. Police were trying to figure out who and which person was the actual suspect and which persons were just passengers who were innocent bystanders with this moving crime scene. And if you take a look, Blair, at the center of your screen and at the top of the bus, you'll see, at least during part of the pursuit, the bus, when it came to a stop, there was this emergency sign, digital, that was a bus reading on the front of the bus. Right. Then it says, call police 911. We are asking investigators right now to find out who triggered this.
Did the bus driver
trigger it to get help?
While this was happening.
Or was it from dispatch? And were they able to do this with some form of technology to alert police, this is the bus that we're concerned about?
So many questions that we are asking now. And as we get updates on this breaking story, we are of course going to come back to it. But we also had another major breaking story today. 4 people rushed to Atlanta hospitals after a shooting inside a busy part of downtown Atlanta in the middle of the day. And tonight, police say the suspected shooter is among the injured.
Atlanta News First Bridget Spencer was one of the first people on the scene to bring us our live coverage earlier today.
And Bridget, police say this all began as an argument that escalated. You've been talking with people out there all day long.
Yeah, scary moments out here when that argument did escalate. Now, we are looking at a completely different scene compared to what I was showing you a little earlier. This is the intersection of John Portman and Peachtree Street. You can see there's still police officers out here at this hour. There's a crime scene investigations unit, as well as some Atlanta police officers right here in front of the Truist Bank, a very busy area of downtown. Now, what we know is what we had here at Peachtree Center food court was an officer-involved shooting. They said it started inside of that food court. A 34-year-old man, they say, got into a fight with another man, and he ended up shooting that man man as well as 2 other women. An off-duty officer jumped in and shot that suspect. We are told that that man actually is a convicted felon with a criminal history. Chief Darren Shearbaum elaborated on that. Take a listen.
That officer engaged him, opened fire, was able, while the perpetrator still had the gun and citizens were still seeking safety, took that perpetrator out of the mix to be able to injure anyone else. And so I want to commend that officer, who I just spoke with a moment ago, for his brave action, his decisive action to end an imminent threat to this community.
Yeah, the victims are, let's list them again, 47-year-old man, a 69-year-old woman, and a 70-year-old woman. All of them are expected to survive. A suspect is in custody. We've also learned that the GBI is involved. They have been out here on scene as well, assisting APD. But we have learned that this is a big collaborative effort between several law enforcement agencies and first responders. That suspect is in custody. We have been talking to some people who live and work down here. They have a sense of calm that that suspect is in custody tonight. And of course, we're going to continue to learn more details about who was injured. Of course, we're going to find that out and share it with you both on air and online. For now, we're downtown Atlanta. Bridget Spencer, Atlanta News First.
Bridget, thank you. And of course, you can download the free Atlanta News First breaking news app. We have been pushing out the very latest on both of these shocking breaking stories all afternoon and now into the evening.
We are also tracking some weather changes. We have 2 first alert weather days. We'll check in with Chief Meteorologist Jennifer Valdez when we come back.
You can see there's only about 2 GSP cars. You know, maybe this person's going to pull over, but then it quickly turns south. We realized once this bus rear-ended another vehicle, right now this image is not on the interstate. This is when they eventually got off on Jimmy Carter Boulevard, and now it's just disobeying traffic laws, no sense for human life in this moment, going over 75 miles per hour for sure. You can see someone deployed spike strips right there. Doesn't appear to be too successful because the bus was still going at this moment.
Yeah, and even at this moment, you know, we're watching this live on TV and it's unfolding before us. Several accidents, no regard for human life, Tori, as you said. It's going to cut in between the turning lane here shortly and then start going the wrong way down the road. Here it is, stopped at the last moment when they actually got it there near Hugh Howell Road. That's over in Gwinnett County. I believe we're going to have some passengers here. Look at them getting off the bus. We weren't sure what was happening. All we saw was people stepping off with their hands behind their head, running into the tree line there. Shortly after, officers stormed that bus. They were in hot pursuit the entire time. They couldn't get it to stop until this moment. Yeah. We aren't sure exactly what stopped the bus at this moment. This was live images, but we do know those officers, riot shields and guns drawn, then quickly, and here it is, getting right into that bus.
And they were also going through these passengers because at that point in time, and here's that moment we want to draw your attention closely because this is when they apprehended that suspect. You can see they have a number of officers with his hands behind his back, and we know now that this was a hostage situation, but at that time when they were going through the passengers, immediately after they had their hands up, they were rushed to the ground, and then after they decipher who's who, clearly they walked away with their man.
Yeah, and it was a full-scale operation between the Atlanta Police Department, Gwinnett Police, Georgia State Patrol, you name it, they were responding. A high-speed chase is always dangerous, even when you're pursuing a small vehicle. 54,000 pounds. Sean Blair, 54,000 pounds of metal flying down the highway with no regard for the safety of the people on board that bus or anybody else on the roads there. Thankfully, it looks like the officers were able to detain the person who we believe was holding the driver hostage and bring this to an end.
It was a moving crime scene that our eyes were attached to the entire time. Tori and Alan, thank you. Atlanta News First, Patrick Quinn. He is live on Hugh Howell Road. That's about a half a mile away from the scene. Patrick, one of the other images that we saw that was just bone crushing was seeing the emergency personnel trying to, we don't know if they were doing, it appeared to be CPR with chest compressions. There were multiple passengers on that bus. Do you have any idea how many people were in fact on the bus, and was anyone injured?
Sean, we are still trying to gather all of those answers. As you mentioned, this was a very urgent scene here in DeKalb County. We were hearing roughly 6 or 7 passengers on that bus. Remember, this is a Gwinnett County transit bus that came all the way from downtown Atlanta, and that's where we came from to try to get here on scene. We are less than a half a mile away from where that bus is currently parked on the side of the road here, and you're seeing some of the traffic concerns here, and it snakes all the way back up the road. If my photographer can pan and just turn around, you'll see the snake of cars, and this is on this is less than a half a mile from the scene, and so all of these drivers will have to turn around on Hugh Howell Road, and even just beyond this, it has been an absolute mess. Drivers have stopped me as they've been going by asking what's going on. A lot of them, they don't know, but this really shows the huge impact that this event has had. Mind you, this is a 3-county police chase, starting in Fulton County, then Gwinnett County, ending here in DeKalb County, ranging roughly 16 miles, and this is going to be a mess well beyond into the evening. Here as you're seeing this a huge line of cars now approaching the incident scene there where there is DeKalb County Police, multiple agencies here on scene. We've seen tons of Atlanta police units here as well, some of them starting to go back towards Atlanta, but we'll start to get some of those answers, Sean, that you mentioned. There's so much we don't know about what happened on that bus for those 16 miles, how it started, how it ended, but as we're walking closer to the bus here, we will try and get some of those answers for you and relay them right back to you as soon as we learn more.
Yeah, and Patrick, I was going to ask you, you know, as you're just arriving there on the scene, the law enforcement presence, it looks like it's really been picking up there. Of course, you have so many different agencies involved, like you were talking about, but this investigation, I got to believe, is going to take a lot of time there to process what's on that bus.
And it is because of how wide this scene is. I mean, again, 3 counties. Atlanta, they started this investigation and then went to Gwinnett County, and there were incidences, crashes all along the way that will have to be included in this. That's why we're seeing such a large police presence, certainly here in DeKalb County, where things finished off right in Stone Mountain. So, yes, we've seen dozens and dozens and dozens of units coming and going, even now an hour plus past when that bus actually came to a stop. And so we'll continue to track things here on the ground. But yes, so many questions that we still need to figure out, guys.
Scene, we will touch base with you as we get new information, as we show you more live pictures from that scene that they're dealing with out there.
It is a scary situation. And, you know, we have our Atlanta News First Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe with us. Brendan, we're going to show some of this live video just to show what is happening right now currently with the investigation. But safety, huge issue. This is a trigger for anyone who takes public transit. You go to a public school, you go through a metal detector. You fly a plane, you go through security. You ride a bus, or you catch the DART or whatever. You don't go through anything. So how can you ask a passenger to get aboard another public transit bus or car and say you're safe?
This is always the challenge, right? The balance of security and freedom. And you can't obviously have police officers on every bus. You can't have them checking every passenger. The real challenge in this case is how do you stop a bus once you have a hostage taker who is holding the driver presumably at gunpoint and ordering the driver to plow through police vehicles and civilian vehicles? How do you stop that bus with anything less than another bus or a dump truck or something like that that is going to be heavy enough? You know, there's one piece of video that's really fascinating, and we've racked it a few times, where you actually see a Georgia State Patrol vehicle, an SUV, getting in front of the bus and trying to stop the bus by slowing down and applying the brakes. Well, the bus just essentially did a reverse pit maneuver on that Georgia State Patrol vehicle. Here you see the video, and this is the spike strip situation. Deploys the spike strips, then he'll retract them. Now, we talked about those being ineffective. That doesn't mean they were ineffectual. The spike strips may very well have punctured the tires. But if it takes a while for the air to come out. They are very large spikes and they're hollow. That's how the air comes out. But then also the bus can drive on the rims, and we know that for a fact because what you don't see on the right side of the right side of this bus is already we saw 2 tires fly off of the bus. You can see it rounding the corner here. Those tires are gone. The bus is riding on rims at that point. So the spike strips can assist. It definitely makes the bus less maneuverable and presumably slowed it down. But then here you have the people literally reversing out of the way to avoid getting hit by the bus. One of the most fascinating things to me in my 34th year as a journalist, watching dozens of police chases, some of them from helicopters, I can tell you that I've never seen so many drivers so quickly moving out of the way. It's really extraordinary when you see these Atlanta drivers. And, it's really no joke intended here. Driving in Atlanta is a defensive maneuver every single day, and you have these drivers very quickly moving out of the way. It's really extraordinary. There were several crashes that were avoided, several serious injuries that were avoided simply by the drivers who were in the path of this bus getting out of the way. The next thing's the investigation, and if these Gwinnett buses are anything like MARTA buses, there are at least 10 cameras. That's going to answer a lot of questions because witnesses sometimes don't have the whole picture. But what you do have when you're looking at this live view of the bus right now, these investigators are going to be able to go and extract that video. If indeed it is like a MARTA bus, you've got 10 or more cameras on board. They're going to be able to have multiple camera angles in addition to the witness testimony. And then you have that emergency police call 911 there. That is, we don't know exactly how this was triggered, but I can tell you there is a panic button. It's like a silent alarm at a bank. The hostage taker wouldn't even have noticed. It would be like hitting the turn signal. Instead, you're actually lighting that up to let everybody outside the bus know, hey, we've been taken hostage. Same thing on an airplane. You squawk a code to tell ground control that you've been taken hostage without radioing. Because if you've got that hostage taker with a gun to your head, you can't get on the radio and go, hey, I've been taken hostage. You can't call 911. Hit that panic button, you let everybody know, call 911 for you.
There's so many questions about this. And quickly, police plan for pursuits involving cars, but a bus is a whole different situation, especially this time of day when it barely could be any busier.
And we still don't know what happened here. What we don't see is, and I don't see any bullet holes on the front of that bus, on the glass. It doesn't mean they're not there.
Right.
I don't see them at this point. What I can tell you, though, is that we did a story just last year about a 2015 incident here in North Georgia where they shot the hostage who was driving a very heavy truck. It was actually an 18-wheeler. It was a forestry truck that was a timber truck here in North Georgia, and police intentionally shot the hostage. There was some confusion over whether they knew the hostage was driving or not. But the 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals ruled it's okay to shoot the hostage if you need to do that in order to stop other people from getting hurt or killed. I'm not saying that's what happened in this case at all, but what I am saying is that legally in this circuit, it is entirely allowed for police to do that. We don't know what stopped this bus yet. We don't know the situation. What we do know is one person was getting treated for very serious medical conditions, and it wasn't the suspect, unless it was a second suspect.
Well, and Brenda, we're actually getting some new information as you were speaking from Atlanta Police right now on their investigation of what they found on that bus.
And the press release that we got, it explained that around 2:24 this afternoon, officers responded to 239 Peachtree Street Southwest in reference to several persons shot. So, Brendan, this is brand new information. You had suspected, we saw live on TV that medical personnel was at least administering what appeared to be chest compressions to someone. But we're hearing now that this information that we just got from the press release may be related to another story.
But while you were speaking, I was looking at some information. I believe we a lot coming at us at the same time from DeKalb County Police. They also sent us some information about this bus incident. And here's what they're saying. Once the bus was stopped, according to them, passengers began exiting. Then their SWAT unit cleared the bus, and according to DeKalb County Police, they located a person suffering from a gunshot wound. That individual was taken to a local hospital. So that information confirmed just coming from DeKalb County Police here moments ago.
The extent of the injuries on that person, whether that person is the actual passenger or the bus driver or possibly even the suspected hijacker, we are unclear on that information. We are asking questions from the police department. As soon as that information becomes available, we'll keep you posted both on air and online. But Brendan, we are able to confirm tonight that one person on that bus was shot.
Well, this fits what we were hearing. The initial incident was that there was an altercation on the bus. So it's very possible. Again, we don't know. We don't want to speculate. But it's possible that this person was shot in that initial altercation. Right. And then what you had was a panicked gunman who was trying to flee from the police responding to that situation. And again, as we discussed, it's a mobile crime scene. They can just keep driving. And of course, at this point, they're already a fleeing felon. They've already committed an act of violence that they have to flee from. Holding the bus driver at hostage was a lesser crime. Sure. From that perspective, sadly, to get away from police for that initial incident.
Brendan, thank you. I know you're going to stay on top of this story. Let's go to Patrick Quinn. He's live on Hugh Howell Road, where this is the actual crime scene now, where the bus is located. Patrick, traffic in that area, it is insane. Anyone headed in that direction, they need to call their family and say, don't come this route.
I mean, this is just a great reminder, Sean, that this all happened in the heart of rush hour in Metro Atlanta, and we have all been stuck in traffic. And of course, that has now extended here into DeKalb County, into Stone Mountain. We just got our first look at the bus here on scene. This is the back of the bus. If my photographer can zoom in just a little bit, you see the red and white paneling on the back of that Gwinnett County transit bus. And here's where it came to a stop. I just talked with a neighbor here on scene. He thought it was a presidential motorcade with all of the commotion following this bus. Of course, he quickly learned it was the exact opposite of that. And now we're still seeing a strong police presence. You hear the DeKalb County Police just gave that update that they were on scene here. Their SWAT officers were on scene here as well, and they were able to take one person to the hospital with gunshot injuries. Now, that latest information came from DeKalb County Police. Of course, we got some information early on from Atlanta Police, so this will be somewhat of a piecemeal process to figure out exactly what happened. For this all happened in multiple counties, multiple jurisdictions, so we're starting to get a better sense of what led up and what followed as this bus came to a stop here. Again, we are in Stone Mountain. We're on Hugh Howell Road, right at the intersection of Stratmore-McCurdy Road and Hugh Howell Road, and that's where that bus has come to a stop. And all traffic still And this is going to be the case now for 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. All traffic will be rerouted as they continue their investigation. Again, the latest information we just got from DeKalb County Police is that their SWAT team was on scene here as some of those passengers exited the bus. One person shot, taken to the hospital, still trying to understand the circumstances of this shooting. We'll send it back to you guys as I try and get some more answers here on the ground.
Yeah, and Patrick, while you were speaking, we just got an update from Atlanta Police on this situation, and we're reading through some of our notes at the same time about what they found, but we have just confirmed that person who was shot was in critical condition, but has now died as a result of what has happened here today.
This is absolutely tragic. We're unsure if this passenger was on the bus headed to work, maybe possibly going home, but someone has lost their life in this police chase with a public transit bus. Multiple people were hijacked on that bus. The latest information that we're getting just now from Atlanta police officers is that they initially responded to a report of gunfire on this bus and that it was a hostage situation near 45 Ivan Allen Jr. Boulevard Northeast. Once the officers arrived at the scene, the bus fled the location according to police, and then that pursuit began.
And this went, as we know, and as we followed this, it went through multiple areas, involved several agencies. And while this was happening, police used various tactics. They wanted to try to stop this bus, according to police. And it ultimately came to a stop where Patrick Quinn has been. But we've also learned more about the suspect. According to Atlanta Police, that suspect is a 39-year-old male. He was taken into custody without any issues. And then once they were clearing that bus, that's when officers say they found an adult victim with that gunshot wound who later died.
And if you look in the center of your screen and you look at the top of the bus, you see a digital billboard. During part of the pursuit, we noticed from our Atlanta News First Alert chopper that the words emergency began to blink on that digital billboard, and then the message, call police 911. I know, Brendan Keefe, you have been asking questions of the police department, also from the Metro bus department who handles this bus in Gwinnett County. Who triggered that? Did the driver trigger that to say, I need help now? Or was this coming from dispatch? Is this an emergency response? Were they trained in case something like this happens?
Yeah. That is the question that we're going to have to ask. I can tell you there are those silent alarm switches. They're essentially equivalent to a bank silent alarm switch. You hit that and it tells everybody, hey, look, I need help, especially when you don't have the ability to radio or to call it in because there's a man with a gun on the bus. And if you do that, you might get shot and killed. In this case, it appears as though the hostage taker needed the bus driver to drive the bus. Anyone can sit in the seat and drive a bus, but it's a little bit more complicated. These do have automatic transmissions these days. It's not like the old days where there were 10 or 12 gears they had to operate and clutches and such. But still, it's not like just sitting in your car, getting in a rental car and figuring out the controls. In an emergency situation where this gunman was trying to get away, he kind of needed the driver in that case. And so, that's what was keeping the driver alive. But now to hear that we have a fatality, that someone was shot and killed, based on the way the police worded it, it sounds like it was a passenger on the bus and that this occurred essentially as the initiating incident that then led to this wild chase that's now, we've got one dead. It's heartbreaking.
And Brenda, to add to that, police are saying there were no other injuries involved in this here today. So that is just amazing when you think about when you saw those passengers coming off that bus with their hands in the air, you immediately wondered what else was left on that bus. Yeah, and then police always, look, hindsight is always 20/20. But when you're in this situation, you don't know, is there a plus one? Do we have another gunman on the bus? Very often, especially in mass shooting incidents, there's always a report of a second or third gunman. It's almost always untrue. But police have to operate on the assumption that everyone's a suspect until they aren't. And you don't know who's kind of in on it. And it's pretty extraordinary the way they took down that bus. And the fact that the suspect is alive is extraordinary. That they didn't, they would have had every justification because even without the gun, the bus itself is a deadly weapon. I mean, all the case law supports that it would have been a clean shooting. They showed extraordinary restraint, and now that suspect is in custody without injury, but we have a victim. This is now a murder investigation.
So many questions for Gwinnett County Transit concerning the safety of its passengers. And we now know that this bus chase suspect, a 30-year-old man, is now in jail. According to Atlanta police, this all started as a hostage situation that was provoked by an argument that was on the bus. At some point, the emergency light, that digital banner was alerted on the bus saying, call police 911. Now we have a passenger, possibly a passenger, who has lost their lives, succumbed to the injuries. We saw it live on TV. Emergency personnel was giving CPR, giving chest compressions. This is heartbreaking. Our heart goes out to the victim's family. And I know Tori, Allen, you both were on air when all of this happened. We just got this brand new information regarding how police are breaking down how this all began at 4:35 p.m. this afternoon.
Absolutely, Sean. And you just kind of mentioned there, you said, this could have been a passenger. You're absolutely right. I know driver is included in passenger. This very well could have been the person operating this bus, the person who was held at gunpoint throughout the duration of this chase. We did witness on air live. It looked like after the passengers exited the bus there was another person who was on the ground, who was removed from that bus right outside of, the stairs of the side of that bus. EMS police officers swarmed that person and started doing those chest compressions. They started doing that emergency response to whatever was happening there. And we now know, at first we weren't sure if it was a shooting or if it was a medical emergency. We now know it very likely was the person who was shot, Tori. This entire instance was terrifying.
Yeah, it was absolutely terrifying. It makes you hold your breath while you're watching. As we were watching it play out in real time, as Blair mentioned, it's amazing that no one else was hurt,
Absolutely.
Right? There was several other cars involved in this. Many cars were rear-ended. Police can't conduct a pit maneuver in this situation because it's such a massive bus that's moving. You don't want to injure other people in this area. But now we know that one of the people injured took place on this bus, and we weren't sure about that until now. So knowing that and looking at all of this, it's amazing that only one person was hurt in all of this.
It is, because you look at the scenes that this bus chase left. I don't know if we have that video up. Do we have the video of the actual chase? Because it wasn't just the people on the bus that were in danger here. It was a number of people out on the highway, on those back roads, on those 2-lane highways as well. This bus was going in the middle of rush hour. It was a mess, and they tried several times. This GSP officer tried to stop that bus just by simply getting in front of it. It just didn't work. The bus plowed right through that officer. He had to eventually move out of the way. You can see it here. He clipped several sedans on the highway there before slamming, T-boning almost, directly into a police officer.
Yeah, and you can see that GSP and other officers who were assisting in all of this were trying to alert the other drivers, were trying to get in front of this bus so that they could let the other drivers in the area know that there was something that they were trying to slow down and that they were responding to a situation. And right there is where you saw that bus take out what appeared to be a Gwinnett County police officer unit. And there was 2 on scene right there, but they did a fantastic job at getting a number of units surrounding this bus as it was barreling down not only the interstate, but then it gets off at Jimmy Carter Boulevard, going through where school intersections are. There could have been kids walking around, parents in this area. This was rush hour. So the fact that no one else was hurt, they did a fantastic job. The police did at making sure that no one else was hurt in all of this.
And this is a story that is just getting started. It's just getting started. Blair, Sean, there is so much left to uncover here about how this happened, why it happened, who all is involved, because you've got the 6 or 7 passengers on board that bus. You have who we believe was the driver, you have the suspect, but you have everybody who was clipped or tagged along that police route, along with the police officers themselves. Many of them were inside those vehicles who were slammed by this bus. So Atlanta News First thing on top of all that as we track down everybody involved and hopefully bring our viewers some answers.
Well, our coverage is going to continue tonight with Tracy Hutchins at 7 o'clock. But again, our hearts go out. If you're just joining us now, there was a police chase. There was involving a Gwinnett County transit bus. That's the bus right there. It went through 2 different counties, spanned 16 minutes, covering over 50 miles.
This all started around 4:30. That was when the initial call came into police. And that initial call was for gunfire on a bus and a possible hostage situation. And then it left from downtown Atlanta and went through Gwinnett County and then ended up here in DeKalb County. We are also hearing from Atlanta police. They are going to be talking about this here tonight. So we expect them to give us an update on exactly what unfolded from their perspective. But we're showing you this map that shows you where it started, as we said, said, near downtown, and then worked its way through a number of different communities, as Alan and Tori were talking about, a number of different crime scenes. And that's going to be playing a critical role in this investigation, because you see how far away the chase ended.
According to Atlanta police, the pursuit spanned multiple jurisdictions. It involves several agencies. During the pursuit, police deployed various tactics to stop the bus. The bus ultimately came to a stop right here at 5107 Hugh Howell Road. This is in Stone Mountain, Georgia. It is an active crime scene. We know that the suspect is now in custody. He is believed to be 30 years old. 39 years old, thank you. And we also know that one of the passengers that we knew that had been shot on this bus has succumbed to their injuries. That person is dead.
Yeah, learning more information about that victim. According to police, the victim was taken to the hospital by ambulance, was at one point in critical condition, and as there was some reporting that there was someone getting some chest compressions there on the scene. We believe that may be the same person, but then they later died at the hospital. So much heartbreak in this story here today.
We're going to continue to follow this story. Make sure you download the free Atlanta News First Breaking News app. We have been pushing out the very latest on this shocking story all afternoon. Atlanta News First is next at 7 with Tracy.
You had no clue. They hadn't even.
Thank you. At the desk, starting here.
Atlanta News First starts now with breaking news.
Breaking news here as we come on the air at 7 o'clock. We're staying on top of the top story here. A bus high-speed chase all the way from downtown Atlanta to Tucker. I'm Alan Devlin. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Tracy Hutchins. Of course, unfortunately, the news that we just learned not too long ago, one person is dead after a dramatic police chase with a bus. This all happening across metro Atlanta.
And on top of that, it all happened at the height of rush hour traffic. One man right now in police custody tonight charged in that incident. And this story continues to develop.
Yeah, the pursuit spanned 16 miles, lasting nearly 40 minutes, all of it starting in downtown Atlanta, then winding through Gwinnett and DeKalb County.
The dramatic end to that chase caught on camera in DeKalb County. This video from Hugh Howell Road in DeKalb County. You can see just how many law enforcement officers were involved in getting this person right here in the white T-shirt with his hands behind his back off that bus and into custody.
Yeah, just a dramatic afternoon. Atlanta News First working to learn more about what really happened on that bus. What led up to it? Let's get out to Atlanta News First Patrick Quinn. He is in Tucker tonight near where that bus chase ended. Patrick?
And we are along Hugh Howell Road, and we're about 100 feet from where that bus is now stopped. Let's show you what we're seeing right now on scene. A heavy police presence still here. Multiple agencies involved. Atlanta Police is expected to give us the latest information in a press conference within the half hour. So we should have new details coming very soon. But this is a look right now at that Gwinnett County transit bus that ended here in Stone Mountain, right along Hugh Howell Road. And this all happened roughly an hour and a half ago. The chase started in downtown Atlanta, and it worked its way all the way up 85 North. And this is in the heart of rush hour traffic. GDOT cameras, they were able to capture this bus barreling down the interstate north on 85 towards Gwinnett County. Of course, this bus dodging cars, clipping some of them, and it did not stop. It worked its way from Gwinnett County through DeKalb County, where it landed here, and it stopped here. It's now halted along Hugh Howell Road. We're seeing more police presence arriving here. This is very much an ongoing scene as the investigation is still mounting. We know that there was one suspect, a 39-year-old man, taken into police custody. We also know that a second person was rushed to the hospital as we witnessed roughly 6 or 7 passengers on that bus get off the bus, but one person taken to the hospital succumbed to their injuries there. This was a deadly incident now, and it will be a ton of traffic backups here in the area for hours as they continue to investigate things. Guys, we'll send it back to you. Again, we're expecting to learn more from Atlanta Police. They're en route right now to give us an update. So as soon as we learn more details on exactly how this all started, what transpired along the way, and of course how it ended here in DeKalb County, we'll be sure to relay those details to you.
All right, Patrick, we are getting more information into our newsroom right now. So earlier today, at the end of that pursuit, that SWAT, DeKalb County SWAT vehicle, the Bearcat, I believe that's what they call it, really blocking off that bus right there. This is an image we just received, and this was part of the way of them stopping that bus. They tried stop sticks, they tried maneuvers, they tried to get in front of that bus. There was no way it was going to stop. Finally, along that road in DeKalb County, they were able to stop it and get all those passengers off the bus and take that suspect into custody. A very up-close look of really how intense that situation was just from that one image.
It took a military-grade vehicle coming at the right time from the right direction to get that bus to slow down. And even then, it was still an operation about getting on board that bus, saving as many lives as possible.
Yeah. A lot of coordination for sure.
Exactly. Though that suspect is in custody, the investigation continues.
Yeah, and some of the innocent people involved who were on that bus, and many of them along the side of the road, just trying to process what happened hours ago. Atlanta News First anchor Savannah Louie has the latest. This was a mess today, Savannah.
Tracy Allen, you can only imagine how scared, how concerned, and how bewildered some of these drivers were as they watched that bus and all those police officers zoom on by. And now tonight, we are hearing from some of the people who saw this whole thing happen. Witnesses telling us that this felt like something out of an action movie or a video game. For about 40 minutes, law enforcement tried a number of tactics to stop that bus, attempting pit maneuvers and spike strips. A number of vehicles were hit during that chase. You can see some of those moments right here on your screen as a slew of police officers drove through Atlanta, then Gwinnett, before the chase ended there in DeKalb County. One driver in the middle of all this chaos says it's a miracle more terrible things didn't happen.
Another car flared up past us, and it was a police officer, and he got out and he started waving at different people to go different places, and he started waving at us to like turn right. I see there's a bus speeding towards our direction, and it starts going to the wrong side of the road and pulling into the right turnoff, going the wrong way. Well, we saw people on the bus, and it was like the first thing that I thought was like, oh my God, those people.
A lot of people very scared and impacted by what happened earlier today. Now, Atlanta News First has calls out right now to Atlanta police. We've requested video, 911 calls, and that full incident report. As we learn more about what exactly unfolded today, we'll be sure to bring you all the latest on air and online as well.
I was walking down the street, and next thing you know, pow, 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 pow. Folks shooting out there.
And that bus chase was not the only story we've been covering today. More breaking news tonight. 4 people shot in downtown Atlanta.
It all happened at the Peachtree City Mall. Now, police say it started as a fight. It ended with a suspect being shot by police.
Atlanta News First reporter Bridget Spencer has been on the scene this evening. She was one of the first reporters out there right on Peachtree Street. So, Bridget, walk us through what in the world happened.
You can really imagine how people were feeling when they heard those gunshots go off here downtown in the middle of the day, gunfire erupting. I want you to take a look at what it's looking like now. This is a completely different scene compared to what we saw when we first got out here. But Atlanta police officers are still here out in front of the hub at Peachtree Center where this all unfolded. Now, there were way more police officers when we first got out here, but things have dialed down just a tad. Now, what we know is that this was an officer-involved shooting. It all started with a fight inside of the hub at Peachtree Center in the food court. Atlanta police saying a 34-year-old man actually got into a fight with another man, and then he eventually shot that man as well as 2 other women. An off-duty officer just happened to be standing by and just jumped in and shot that suspect. We're told that that man is actually a convicted felon, and he had a long criminal history. And Chief, he elaborated on that criminal history, but he also talked about what unfolded when this all went down.
The person that we have in custody is a convicted felon. He has served prison time for an armed robbery, and he has 11 previous arrest cycles. This is an individual that should never have been possessing a gun, an individual that should never have placed this community in harm, but that an officer of this department was able to stop that threat.
Yeah, Chief Sherbaum commended that officer for stepping in, making sure that the situation didn't become any worse than what it did. The victims, we are told, is a 47-year-old man, a 69-year-old woman, as well as a 70-year-old woman. All of the victims are expected to survive. Police have been out here at this point for several hours, and it's looking like they're going to remain out here for quite some time. They did reopen Peachtree Street, so that's good news if you do travel in this area. We also know that the GBI has also stepped in, as they do in many officer-involved shootings. Again, 4 people shot, one of them being the suspect. Everyone is expected to survive. We're live in downtown Atlanta tonight. Bridget Spencer, Atlanta News First.
Atlanta News First is staying on top of every breaking news story impacting you and your neighborhood, like the 2 we just had today. Download our Atlanta News First app to get up-to-the-minute notifications sent directly to your phone.
Well, now at 7, we have a busy weather week as well. 2 first alerts in our forecast. This time it's because of the heat. First alert meteorologist Patrick Pete taking a look at that. Man, a lot of people sweltering today.
Yeah, and this is the coolest afternoon that we're expecting this week. It's about to get hot, and we're also going to start to increase that humidity. We're first start weather day Friday and Saturday, and not for rain. You're going to be wishing we had some rain around. But it's going to be for these scorching temperatures near record highs expected both Friday and Saturday afternoon. Be prepared for it. Make sure that you hydrate, and of course look for shade if you have any plans to be outdoors. Gorgeous on First Alert Satellite and Radar this evening. Just a few clouds, a lot of sunshine out there. It's really dominated the day. We've seen those winds bring in some drier air behind that front yesterday. Dew point still in the low to mid 50s, so not terrible for this time of year. Actually feels quite good outside. Just a little warm. 86 here in Atlanta. A little bit cooler once you leave the city. 81 in Carrollton, 80 in Canton, down to the mid to upper 70s once you head to the North Georgia mountains. And I do expect temperatures to drop as we head through the next few hours, but we are going to have a few clouds around, so it will not be as cool tonight as it was this morning. So we'll start off today in the mid to upper 60s. A good amount of sunshine tomorrow, but more clouds tomorrow than what we saw today. Despite that, I still expect temperatures to top out near 90 degrees with warmer numbers in the 7-day forecast. I'll time out the warm up coming up in just a few minutes.
See you then, Patrick. Thank you. And we are staying on top of a number of major stories for you tonight. Here's your top 7 at 7. The president's son convicted on federal gun charges. A Delaware jury finds Hunter Biden guilty of lying about his drug use while buying a revolver.
That's not how you want to remember your son.
Nigel Cullen's family intensifying their push for transparency. People who knew the 22-year-old react to the newly released footage of his police shooting death. A man behind bars charged with vandalizing the Fellini's Pizza on Ponce. Willie Grace accused of breaking a glass door and swinging his fist at a pregnant woman. You'll one day be able to visit President Jimmy Carter's home. According to his grandson, the Plains, Georgia property will eventually be donated to the National Park Service. Atlanta's LGBTQ community united with pride. The official theme revealed for this fall's annual Pride Parade and Festival. FDA advisors approve Eli Lilly's Alzheimer's drug. The medication designed to slow down the disease in its early stages. A Rent Cafe report reveals apartment sizes are shrinking in Atlanta, with the 4th largest floor space loss in the nation over the past decade. We want to get back to that breaking news. We've been telling you about that pursuit of a bus that spanned across 3 counties. 1 person died after passengers and a bus driver on that Gwinnett County bus were held hostage. What we've learned is that 1 passenger was shot, was taken to Grady. Unfortunately, that passenger passed away. The driver of the bus, we are working to learn their condition, taken to Gwinnett Medical Center.
And we are right now waiting on a potential press conference. Some details coming from police that are there on scene. As soon as that comes up, it comes live. You'll have it right here on Atlanta News First. I'm sure then we'll get a better picture, more details about exactly how this happened and where police are in their investigation. Also tonight, the city of Atlanta making your safety a top priority.
The city's new manager of nightlife telling us how they're trying to do it.
And a major trial twist. The next cop accused of killing a teenage girl now refusing to testify. The impact on his defense. Live at 5. What?
Well, now at 7 o'clock, Atlanta News First, staying on top of breaking news. It has been a major news day. Right now, you're taking a live look. This is all happening in DeKalb County. We are getting ready for a press conference right now about the Gwinnett County bus where a suspect was on board, allegedly holding the bus driver at gunpoint. A number of people were on board. The day ended really with one of those passengers being shot and dying from their injuries. Right now, we know the bus driver is at the hospital, but there's a lot to unpack here. This all started in Fulton County and lasted some 16 miles for some 50 minutes there. The Atlanta police department spokesperson there giving us an idea of when this press conference is about to start. So we're just waiting to listen in here. But we do expect to hear from Atlanta Police Chief Darren Shearbaum and also representatives from Georgia State Patrol as well. They were instrumental in this pursuit, really kind of taking the lead physically, trying to get that vehicle off the roadway, and also DeKalb County SWAT teams using their Bearcat vehicle to really get in front of that bus and to stop it. And that's when we saw that suspect kind of being pulled out of that bus and then taken into custody.
This was absolutely phenomenal cooperation between multiple agencies there in DeKalb County to stop this incident. You can see the actual bus to the left side of your screen still sitting where it was stopped, and that Bearcat, Tracy, that you were just talking about directly in front of that bus. As Tracy just mentioned, for everybody at home, we are waiting to hear from police about what is happening there. They are expected to give some kind of update to the media, which of course is giving an update to you all as well. As soon as they walk up to the microphone to begin that conversation, you'll see it right here on Atlanta News First. If you're just joining us, or maybe you just got home from work, whatever it may be, this is a story we've been following since right at about 4:45 when Atlanta News first learned that a bus had been hijacked, for a lack of better words, hijacked on I-85, and everybody on board, about 6 to 7 people, including a driver, taken hostage. That's what we're learning from the Atlanta Police Department tonight, and we're slowly piecing together exactly how or why this happened. All we know is that it was a physical altercation that happened in downtown Atlanta near Ivan Allen, and then a gun was drawn. The rest is a 16-mile route, about an hour-long chase all the way through and into DeKalb County.
And Alan, we learned too that there was a preliminary report of gunfire on the bus when, right before this pursuit happened, just around 4:35 this afternoon. Again, the crazy thing is that this really transcended a number of counties, and we watch this bus weave in and out of traffic, go through stoplights and stop signs, and narrowly miss other vehicles on the roadway, almost in the middle of rush hour. And surprisingly, there was minimal damage done to a number of those vehicles, but probably at least half a dozen, if not a dozen, got clipped on the back side, on the front side. So a number of people filing insurance claims. And that's what's making this crime scene so large, as police are investigating all of those as a part of this very large incident.
A lot of people are going to wake up tomorrow sore from getting clipped by that bus, because getting hit by a bus is no joke, but they're going to see tomorrow. That's the main thing here. One person, as we have learned, is not. We've got one fatality that was on board that bus suffering a gunshot wound. They did not make it out of this situation. And I'm sure police are going to give us more updates on, honestly, as well as everything else, this person right here, who we believe is a suspect, being charged actually with homicide in this investigation here, being detained, being walked out of that bus moments after the bus first stopped. 39-year-old male, we've learned. No other details outside of that. We have not gotten an identification of the suspect or anybody on board that bus or the person who was shot and transported to the hospital. Maybe we'll get that here in moments when we hear from police about this situation.
Yeah, and Alan, we don't have many details, as you mentioned, on the other passengers on the bus. It could possibly 4, 5, 6, 7 people on the bus. From what police are telling us, no one else was injured who was on the bus. Again, unfortunately, one passenger succumbed to their injuries from a gunshot wound earlier this afternoon. And of course, this is a very active and ongoing investigation as we see Atlanta police officers, Atlanta Police Chief Darren Shearbaum there, along with the Georgia State Patrol, really kind of going over some some of the details of this investigation, some of the details of what they will release to us, the media, and what we can report to you, our viewers, to let you know what happened today. Again, a very, very busy news day, just on the heels of 4 people being shot in downtown Atlanta. And Police Chief Shearbaum was at that as well. He's probably, you know, he's been traveling the roadways, unfortunately, all day today, but really kind of trying to look at what led up to this and really where the investigation stands now, because this will be a massive investigation. And I have to tell you, Alan, in my, you know, cumulative 20 years here, I've seen a lot of different things, right? Never seen a high-speed bus chase, metro bus chase.
You know, you're absolutely right. It was as soon as we learned of this chase in our newsroom, and I want to see, I definitely want to keep up the live shot here of the potential press conference, but can we also show on the other side of the screen here some of that chase from that bus from earlier? And while we're getting that up for you, Tracy, back to what you were saying here, it is insane to think about how when we first saw live images of this bus chase, some members of our newsroom were aware that something was happening, but we weren't 100% sure. Some people who weren't in on it just yet, because it happened so quickly, thought, oh, this might be Los Angeles, because that's where a lot of this stuff happens. There's always police chases, and there's a lot of coverage of those police chases out of cities like Los Angeles. This is Atlanta, and we've got a bus chase running down I-85, and it's not just, you know, a normal police chase. This is a 54,000-pound killing machine. As our chief investigator, Brendan Keefe, said, when the wrong person is behind the wheel, and it was a trail of devastation. I want to walk you guys through it here. We have a look from the GDOT camera. There's the bus on the left side of your screen. This hero unit here, a person deployed spike strips. You can barely see it. He tried. He may have gotten it, but it wasn't enough to stop the bus altogether. The bus then clips this sedan while it's running from GSP, the Atlanta Police Department, Gwinnett County Police, and DeKalb County Police. It then T-bones that officer right there. Later on, it was a Bearcat on the other side of the road that stopped the bus, and those passengers start getting off. Hands up, some getting on the ground, running into the tree line. We're not sure exactly what happened immediately after that, because we didn't know, and we wanted to make sure we did not show any of those dangerous or possibly violent instances on live television. Maybe, what was it, Tracy, 5 minutes later, if that, after that bus stopped, they had the suspect. They had the suspect with hands behind his back walking down the street, and there he is being taken into custody. It was 2 minutes after that we saw what appeared to be a person on the ground right outside of that bus getting CPR administered to him or her, and we're not exactly sure what happened in that moment. And I will update you as well. We just got told we're going to have to wait a few more minutes for that press conference. I'm sure Darren Shearbaum, Atlanta Police,
Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens, he just arrived there as well.
Oh, he did arrive. Did you see him? Okay, yeah. So they're probably getting everything straight on their end. And then when they get their pieces together, they'll be able to tell us, hopefully, what will be more information than what we already have.
Yeah, and there is a lot of information to learn about this. In the meantime, we want to get you caught up on what's going on outside, because, man, is it toasty out there. Atlanta News First. First Alert meteorologist Patrick P. taking a look at we have some first alerts in our forecast.
We have first alerts, and we got a new air quality alert today as well for tomorrow. This is something that is very common once we get into the warming months. The air is going to be a little bit thicker, a little bit more ozone. It's going to be tougher to breathe for folks who have COPD, asthma, any kind of respiratory or heart condition. So this is going to be a heads up. Avoid doing strenuous activity outside late afternoon, early evening, because that's whenever ozone levels are highest. But beyond that, we have 2 first alert weather days, Friday and Saturday. Temperatures are going to be near record territory, so it is just going to be real hot as we head into the weekend. But we're also keeping an eye to the tropics. Nothing out there right now, but things are sizzling, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Gorgeous across our area. The dew points are a little bit lower, but it's still warm out there. 86 here in the city, 84 Athens, 83 right now Covington, 85 over in LaGrange. I do expect temperatures to gradually slide into the 60s as we head through the overnight. A lot of folks woke up to the 50s this morning, not expecting that tomorrow. As we head into tomorrow, we're also going to notice that it's going to be a little bit more humid as we head into the afternoon. Those dew points start to creep back up into the upper 50s, low 60s, so it's going to be noticeably more muggy throughout all day parts. Also more cloud cover than we've seen the last couple of days. We're still going to call it partly cloudy. We're going to keep things mainly dry. If you're getting out the door at around 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, temperatures are going to be in the upper 60s, partly cloudy with clouds building through the afternoon. If you were thinking about taking a lunch break, because it's going to be a little bit more muggy, probably best to reserve a table indoors. Tracy Allen, looks like we have some updates.
Yeah, it looks like we might.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Here it is, Andre Dickens speaking about the incident. Let's listen in.
We're here at a scene here in DeKalb County. It's unfortunate that today, in two different instances, I am coming before the media with Chief Shearbaum talking about acts of gun violence in our region, in our city. And I'm thankful for the partnerships that we have here. We have DeKalb County, we have Gwinnett County, GSP, and of course, Georgia State Patrol, and of course, the Atlanta Police Department here. My heart goes out to the family of the one individual that is deceased at this time. My heart also goes out to the individuals that had to endure this frightening journey across multiple jurisdictions this evening that was on this bus here. And also earlier today, we had individuals at the Peachtree Center mall downstairs at the food court that were shot by another individual. So today has been a very active day. But let me be clear, we're talking about gun violence that is as a result of too many people having guns in their hands. When Chief explains to you that one of the individuals had 11 arrests and another one had 19 arrests, you're talking about people that should not have been on the streets with guns. I think mental health is going to play a role in some of this, but you're talking about too many guns in the hands of individuals that should not have guns. Too many guns on our streets, too many guns in our homes, too many guns in our schools and buses, etc. And so this is clearly an indication that something and more needs to be done. It doesn't stop at one jurisdiction, as you've seen today. This individual has held someone to a driver at gunpoint across multiple jurisdictions. And so we all have to say enough is enough when it comes to too many people having guns in their hands and using them in violence. And so today I'm just thankful for the speedy work of all of these law enforcement agents that we have here. I've spoken to a lot of the county leadership about their efforts and also to Governor Kemp about the efforts of Georgia State Patrol. And I'm thankful for the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department and all these agencies here that minimized what could have been even more dangerous. So again, to those families, my heart goes out to you, and I hope that those individuals that had to endure that frightening journey as we all watched, I hope that that they can get some rest and that they will be comforted in knowing that all of these law enforcement agencies are working together to bring that to an end. And so now I'll turn it over to Chief Shearbaum as he'll give more details about this critical incident.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate your leadership today. I also want to thank our partners at the DeKalb County Police Department, Chief Ramos, Chief Smith over at Gwinnett, and thank you, Captain and Major, for your assistance with the Georgia State Patrol. As we were concluding the briefing a short while ago in downtown Atlanta of the shooting at the Peachtree Center Mall, our 911 center at about 4:30 received a report of an emergency on a bus that was at 45 Ivan Allen Boulevard in the city. An officer arrived about 1 minute later when he confronted the perpetrator that then forced the bus driver to drive off. Our initial call was of a gunman on the bus that was holding hostages, and possibly there had been a discharge of a weapon. That was the initial 911 call. That call disconnected, and so officers were following the bus at that time. Then we received a 911 call from a family member of an occupant of the bus saying he was receiving text messages that there had been a hijacking and that individuals were being held hostage against their will. And then a short time later, we received another 911 call, also from the bus. And that line remained open for the entire time, including the termination that you see behind me by the local law enforcement partners. It was that information that our call takers and dispatchers were hearing that was fed initially to the Atlanta Police Department, and then to the Georgia State Patrol, and then our partners at Gwinnett and DeKalb County to craft an end of this hostage situation that played out today, that that you all carried live on the news. There were 17 individuals on the bus, including the bus driver. Unfortunately, as the mayor has stated, one individual has died of injuries which we believe to be a gunshot wound. This is going to be a joint investigation by the Atlanta Police Department as well as from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. We currently do have in custody a 39-year-old Joseph Greer. Last known address was Stone Mountain, Georgia. There's a common theme here from what happened earlier today. Mr. Greer is a convicted felon, 19 prior arrest cycles that appear to be armed with a handgun, that use that handgun on citizens on the bus behind us. I again want to thank the Georgia State Patrol, Gwinnett County, and DeKalb County. You saw the collective effort and dedication of law enforcement working today to save lives, to rescue hostages, to make sure this ended. And then, who we rarely seen, the 911 call takers and dispatchers that remained on the line, relaying information to see this come to a resolution. And I want to again thank the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department. You stayed in the chase all the way here. You're behind me investigating this crime with our GBI partners, and you continue to investigate back in the city. I always see the work that you all do. I'm going to turn over now to Captain Burns from the Georgia State Patrol, who can give more information regarding the efforts undertaken by that agency once the Atlanta Police Department handed off to them when the pursuit entered into Gwinnett County. Captain.
So I'm going to be very brief, basically because this investigation, it's still under investigation, so we can't say a whole lot at this time. But we did receive a call for assistance from the Atlanta Police Department, and we did send troopers to assist with the pursuit of this bus. But again, I really can't go into a lot of details beyond that just because this is still under investigation. But we're thankful to work with all of our partners in the Metro Atlanta area, and we're just thankful to be to assist them in every way that we can. Like I said, it's still under investigation, so we can't really provide a lot of details about it.
We'll open up for questions. However, please follow these instructions. We'll start on this end and come down.
Been listening live to a press conference from the Atlanta Police Department, as well as the mayor of City of Atlanta, Andre Dickens, and also officials from the Georgia State Patrol. Here's what we've learned so far. That bus chase pursuit that happened. What we've learned, 17 people were on board. One of them died from their injuries, a gunshot wound. 17 people, including the bus driver on there, the bus driver taken to the hospital. Interesting here, Alan, someone called 911 on that bus, and that line was left open. And because of what dispatchers were hearing, they were able to relay that information to law enforcement, and that's how they were able to bring this pursuit to an end, to a head there. That is pretty incredible.
It sure is, and it shows you how important that line of communication is. We were talking about earlier that these officers might not even know who or what was happening on that bus. I'm sure having that phone call open assisted them tremendously in making sure they could stop this as soon as possible. So that's where we end our coverage here on Atlanta News First. But if you want to continue watching and listening into that press conference as some of those officers answer some of those questions, you sure can go to Atlanta News First. Plus, right now, you can download our app on Google Play or the App Store. We're going to have that press conference up live right now. It's already going. You can tune right back in on today's bus chase and crash, as well as that deadly shooting.
I prefer Fred's schedule, whatever this.
And then he has a long, long break. Right. Right. Yeah, that is long. This beautiful thing. I feel like we should flip-flop this. Okay, here, Alan, because it has me saying something, then my name, then you saying your name, and then it goes back to me, but I think we should just like flip-flop that. All right. So I'll start, but see, we go here, and then it says you, and then me. Yeah. And then we'll flip-flop, whatever. Are you in this cut-in too? Are you in this cut-in too? You do weather? Oh, Lord. Right, like he tried to assault me with, if I hear this St. Jude music one more time, what? I'm like, what? Don't you get paid for this? Meantime, first alert, first alert. Look, I got to call the chopper first alert because of all this.
I've been hit in the face. Do you know how many times I've been hit in the face by one of y'all's little stingers?
Right. Cutting his head off.
My forehead off.
Yup.
And every time it's like, oh, yup. There's that weather coming in 2 minutes. This train will begin. It never begins.
I know.
Every time it goes, it's funny.
Well, that's because we rely on somebody hitting a button, probably. We're ready. Well, maybe we can get this done before halftime. Right?
I won't be here anyway. You know Tracy's not. The thing is, though, does it really matter if Tracy does it or not? I know it's airing in the 7, but like if we had somebody else do it.
No, doesn't matter if I'm here.
I know. It's just we're apparently like usually they can air at 7 or something. I think it's because Blair and Sean was supposed to be doing their promo today, so they weren't supposed to be here. They got called off when this whole thing went down with the 6. So now they're gone again. Huh? I think me and Tori doing 11, and then me and Savannah doing 10.
We could have handled the other shows.
We could have.
This is an Atlanta News First halftime update.
Well, thanks for joining us for tonight's Atlanta Dream Halftime Update, powered by Atlanta News First. I'm Tracy Hutchins.
And I'm Alan Devlin. So we're going to start with a high-speed bus chase spanning multiple counties. Police say a man stole a bus in downtown Atlanta and led officers on a 16-mile chase before eventually stopping in DeKalb County. Several people were let off the bus when it finally came to a stop, including a 39-year-old suspect who was immediately arrested. Police say they also found a person on board with a gunshot wound. That person rushed to the hospital, but later was pronounced dead.
4 people shot inside the Peachtree Center Mall food court today. Police say it all started with an argument between 2 people, then one of them started shooting. 3 people were hit before an off-duty... Okay, I'm confused.
This is an Atlanta News First halftime update.
Well, thanks for joining us for tonight's Atlanta Dream Halftime Update, powered by Atlanta. I know. Literally done.
This is an Atlanta News First halftime update.
Well, thanks for joining us for tonight's Atlanta Dream Halftime Update, powered by Atlanta News First. I'm Tracy Hutchins.
And I'm Alan Devlin. A high-speed bus chase spanning multiple counties. Police say a man stole a bus in downtown Atlanta and then led officers on a 16-mile chase before eventually stopping in DeKalb County. Several people were let off the bus when it finally came to a stop, including a 39-year-old suspect who was immediately arrested. Police say they also found a person on board with a gunshot wound. That person rushed to the hospital, but later died.
4 people shot inside the Peachtree Center Mall food court today in downtown. Police say it all started with an argument between 2 people, then one of them started shooting. 3 people were hit before an off-duty Atlanta police officer drew his weapon and shot the gunman. One of the victims, 69 years old, another 70. All 4 people were rushed to the hospital. They're said to be in stable condition. Police say the suspect is a convicted felon.
Gorgeous across the area this evening. Although clouds will gradually build through the overnight hours, most of us will kickstart today partly cloudy, but increasing clouds through the afternoon really going to keep temperatures a nudge cooler. Still expecting most of us to top out above average as we head into the afternoon hours, and expecting clear skies to really dominate your Friday forecast, which is going to send temperatures into the upper 90s, even some areas flirting with 100 degrees by Friday afternoon. As far as tonight's concerned, it's going to be the mid-60s in the North Georgia mountains, closer to 67 in Albany, and as we head into the day tomorrow, despite the clouds, most of us still topping out near 90. 90 here in Atlanta and Rome, 91 down in Macon and Albany, and we're 92 degrees in Valdosta.
Well, you can get breaking news updates and severe weather alerts sent directly to your phone.
Just download the free Atlanta News First app or watch us live wherever you stream.